introduces to a group of my friends of my social sphere that doesn't often think in this way that, aren't laws kind of effed up? Shouldn't we really think a lot about when we make laws? Like, I think let's all just tie a ribbon around our finger and promise to think a lot when we want to solve a problem with laws.
There was I'm sure it was meant flippantly at the time, but in one of his books, John Stossel proposed that for every new law you have to repeal 2 old laws, and I actually think that's a great idea. Like, I mean, number one, it'll be decades before laws to repeal get scarce. It's like, so short term, you're not even gonna have to worry about it, and after 10 years, you'd kind of have that habit down, and then it becomes like, well, which is more important? Do you want to kill these 2 to get this? Anyway, I don't know. That stuck with me. Hey man,
so what are laws anyway? We follow them. Maybe laws are the greatest thing ever.
This guy certainly thinks
They're
so.
Not.
I know. I used to think so. Yeah.
I won 12 Emmys when I thought laws were great, but then I turned and they said I've sold out.
I don't feel like I've changed.
Let me run to the restroom and we're ready to go.
All right. So, J-Balls, your new nickname here. I'm going to send you a story. I'm going to have you read it.
All right.
It's an account. And so I'll let you read it on air, as you will.
Are you emailing it?
Or I could right now if you want. I could just click send.
You
and
would
boom,
like.
I sent it.
Maybe I should email it.
Maybe I should.
How am I going to do it? Should I go to my phone? I always used to. Next thing you know, you open it on the lock screen.
Well, I mean, if laws were better, then things would be better by now, wouldn't they? But when's the last time you saw somebody commenting on how great the world was?
Dude, patron-only exclusive. We're going to do a 30-minute only John Stossel, 3-way John Stossel podcast.
It's hard to, even Bonnie's dad, my father-in-law, saw me reading one of his books. And he's like, Can you read that without hearing his voice? I'm like, no.
The funny thing is that he has a very literary way of speaking. He has these like Vonnegut short sentences like in his television delivery.
Yeah.
Like Michael Caine, like a Michael Caine biography.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, here, let me set levels and then we're ready to rock. Let's do this. Check! Max level for Brian is -6. Let me hear Andrew.
This is me talking out my mouth.
Justin.
But Master Wayne, maybe you could become more than just an idea.
A symbol. Perfect. All right, man, we're ready to rock. I'm ready to get weird.
All right.
Hold on, wait a minute.
Do we want to tweet out that people can join us at the brand new diamondclub.tv?
Oh, yeah. By the way, brand new diamondclub.tv. Thanks to
Sergeant Muffin.
Hey, have you guys thought about updating diamondclub.tv?
Yeah, thought about it. We loudly bemoaned to the universe that it should update itself. And guess what? It did.
Yeah, no, now there's automatic updating.
And my flash
Oh,
is
really?
out of
When we
date.
go live, it automatically flips over?
That was part of what he has is like an
that's
automatic, as soon as MetaCDN goes live, it kicks it live.
Wait, it's flash-based?
I don't know.
Never mind.
Is it flash-based?
It says I don't use the flash plugin, so.
Oh.
Pass!
The
It's 2015.
Club.tv. Where a
There we go.
live,
Live right there.
I'm gonna do,
of the Weird Things podcast. Join us right now. Oh, I am ready. Oh, it's MetaCDN is what it is. That's everything else like is not Flash.
and no mobile.
Again, that's no. I have it work on mobile. Certainly, all the YouTube stuff works.
So I don't know what MetaCDN is. So
that's our live streamer service. So it flips
They
over.
sound
the
great, guys.
dude.
I mean, this is not new to this thing. This has always been what it is. The Meta CDN embed.
That's what's made it possible for us to have sub 30-second lags.
For some reason, it should be doing like a rollover though. Then, if that was because I've done it mobile before.
Yeah, you want to know what? So have I. And this is not loading on my mobile. Oh, wait, no, here it is. Here.
Oh, it is loading. Check 1, 2. What's up, future Brian? It's past Brian. Suck a bunch of donkey balls.
Oh, there we go. All right, so it does roll over now. Fine, cool.
It rolled over just in time for Andrew to loudly dismiss the new redesign of DiamondClub.tv.
I was not that. It's whatever. It's all right. It's good.
It was working.
Good. Now it works. It's good.
I had something I wanted to share, but I've forgotten it already. It's a little song I wrote. It's called "Working in the Cornfield." All right, I'm ready to start whatever you guys
Although
say.
I got to tweet this out.
Okay.
Holy crap. All right,
dude. Hold on. Again, major applause for Sergeant Muffin. This thing is
oh my God,
magic.
No,
he's hanging out and taking feedback from everyone as they play with it, and they're all like, "Oh yeah, I'd like it to do this," and he's like, "Wish granted." DiamondClub.tv. Oh, by the way, I got confirmation, Justin, that we do in fact have a video podcast feed, and that we're not just relying on.
What is Sergeant Muffin's Twitter?
That's a good question.
At Sergeant Muffin.
SGT Muffin. Dude, this thing is so dope. Yeah. Very excited.
That was it was very funny. That email was very it tickled me on two different levels. A, that there would be some sort of like recourse system that should we win, that somebody would loudly protest from the audience and say, "But nay, there is not a video feed." And then the fact that we did have two video feeds. That was
well, and then there's that third layer that I full on did not know, and I'm gonna bet that you couldn't state with full confidence whether we did or didn't.
I like the idea of Brian going onto stage to accept this. Like, I have to refuse this. I apologize why we don't have a video feed. I feel ashamed for doing this. It's one of many lies. Starting in third grade, when I told the teacher I didn't cheat, but I actually looked over on Ginny Holcomb's test and I actually got an answer. And then Bonnie, I did have that Penthouse magazine confession. And then, no, Brian, we have a video. Neshcom points out from the audience. No, Brian, we have a video feed. Oh,
like, are you sure?
Yeah, no, here it is. Holds up the phone. Remember, Andrew didn't think we had the video feed either.
Let's see. Where would we go? Episode.
You pick up the broken trophy off the ground.
You can find all of our feeds at nightattack.tv.
Yeah, I like the fact that it never occurred to me to just check, but instead I just go to the people who handle everything. I'm like, guys, somebody tell me if we have a video feed.
Where you can just say, I want this. I want that.
There is, you become, and it is the blessing to have as many amazing people in this community that are so willing to give instantaneous answers. But there is just an infantilization at a certain point where it's just like
you become totally incompetent at everything.
On After Things, I'm going to tell the Elvis story.
Good God. Yeah, no. There is a point where it's like I Google once, I then try another query on Google, and my third Google search is on Twitter asking a question.
Somebody help me. I need to find a thing.
I need a thing. Give me a thing.
All right, man. I'm ready to go at your whims, gentlemen. You ready to start?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Weird Things podcast, where I start off the show by slapping the microphone with my hand.
Man, that mic was giving you sass all afternoon. I've been looking at that mic.
Someone put it in line.
I'm Andrew Main, joined by Justin Robert Young.
Hello, friends.
Sorry, you caught me when I was taking a drink there. And Brian.
Hey, beautiful people.
So, gentlemen, let's cut the nonsense out right now, right, Brian?
Yeah, enough.
Yeah, it's been weird. That's the end of the show. No. That's what happens when you cut out all the nonsense.
Shortest show ever. I'm going to say up right front, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/weirdthings. If you want to support the show, go there, help us out, support it. It's good. It's fun.
Hey, real quick, reporting in on the Patreon. Normally, progress report. Normally, we see like a big dip at the beginning of the month when people get charged. No dip, continuing to creep on up towards our goal of $1,000 an episode, which, of course, makes possible paying for fantastic talent like fabulous Bryce Neshcom Castillo, who's producing all this. And
we ordered him on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, man. Also, we have a bit of news. Many people watch us live at diamondclub.tv. Recently, the fantastic Sergeant Muffin has made possible an upgrade that makes the site look amazing. Especially,
yeah, but does it work on mobile, guys?
Yeah, it does. It works on all that. And I'm seeing right now an image of an image of an image of the feed.
Yeah, wait, what the hell's happening?
Some trippy.
We're apparently entering the singularity.
I cut over to the feed, and of course, it's playing the feed, and so you're seeing here. You see, there we are.
Oh, okay.
We're going to enter an alternate dimension. I'll have a beard. Just will be wearing the glasses. You know, Brian will be sitting all alone in his Burbank apartment.
Wow. I mean, this is definitely very... Man, I'm really glad I got high before this show.
All right. I just wanted to take a moment to thank Sergeant Muffin for making that wizardry possible. He hangs out in the chat, and, of course, you can as well. Head on over to diamondclub.tv.
Yeah, and the best thing, just real quick pitch for the new DiamondClub.tv. We've got multiple channels now. What we found is that there was a gigantic community outpouring of people who wanted to stream video games and do their own stuff, and it was really high quality, super fun, community oriented content. Now there are other places where you can you can put that. You can have we already have more people, including like Curly from Drunk Kids Gaming and Scott Johnson stuff.
All of Cosmic Radio TV. I mean, what we figured out is that our fans are not just consumers, but they are producers of content as well. And this gives a collaborative space where everybody can, you can open up your own channel.
And it's now we feel freer that we can always go live with something because there's always going to be space.
Max Ammo in the chat just dropped the N-word. He said, "A network is born."
No, networks are for people who want to deal with advertisers, and we are steadfast against making money unless it's on Patreon. So,
that's right.
Hey, listen, it's a rad place where you can go and have a fun time. You can hang out with all the boys. It's fun to be at the DIAMONTCLUB.
DIAF. Sergeant Muffin nailed it. We are a co-op. That is correct.
Thank you so much, Sergeant Muffin.
All right, man. All the plugs up front. This is like a wrestling podcast.
Yeah,
this is great.
Now dive it in, gentlemen. Get ready.
I'm ready.
Get ready. One, you're welcome. Yeah, you guys are welcome.
Did you save the world again?
No, I mean, I may have risked my life even more than I realized on a previous expedition that I talked about to Oregon involving caves and ape caves and possible UFO sightings and stuff. I had no idea what I was stepping foot into when I entered into the land of Oregon.
Well, walk us through it. We knew that there was, tribes of possibly super intelligent ape beasts that were lingering all about.
As you may know, I actually grew up there and then left there, before I turned a teenager, and thought I put it all behind me, but got pulled back in. And now I just found a new report, a new account that I may actually go investigate. I'll have you know. May look into this. May check this out.
Sounds heavy duty. I mean, do we need to work on finding another host for the show if you don't come back?
Is this something where we got to worry that you're not going to come back?
Guys, I may cease to exist in this universe if I don't come back. And as far as another host, screw you. All right.
The podcast dies with
setting the show on fire, putting it onto a boat, sending it out to sea. That's what's happening.
Okay, fair enough.
And shooting arrows at it, and maybe missing and causing civil war. Point is, that's next thing you know, we get the red wedding. That's how it works. I don't know if made the connection between the dots there. But my point is that. Yeah, I'll do it. I might do this. I may take this up. I mean, I risked my life once in the ape cave, as I described that. As I fearlessly trekked forward, pretending to be, uncomfortable and scared and out of breath.
Oh, that's good. That was just to throw them all off, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So where is it this time? You've received, I assume, dispatches from your network of spies in Oregon.
Well, as I reach out to many different news sources, around the world, as I reach out there and try to keep track of all the different things going on there, and perhaps one of the most credible ones is the Mutual UFO Network.
Oh, good old MUFON, yeah.
Folks at MUFON have, which sounds like it's a swear word in some of the. Oh, you MUFON, Brian.
It also kind of sounds like I always kind of get it confused with a muffaletta bread. Like, you're just like, oh, can I get the capicola and hot peppers on a MUFON? Thank you.
Sounds good.
Man, it seems like something you'd say like at a wedding. You're like, come on, MUFON, get your groove on.
So I found this article because, there's been some debates about black holes lately, like maybe actually black holes do store information, which is one big thing that they may store information, they may not lose mass. Another one is maybe they don't exist at all. Now, I don't think we can have all three.
Real quick, because I've heard that phrase that information gets destroyed by a black hole. What does that mean? Does that mean like the black hole is so strong that any ability to recreate or to look at a black hole and figure out, like, for example, you could say that information is stored underground because we have fossils, and from that we can intuit that an animal died here and got covered in mud and blah, blah, blah. We can figure stuff out. That's what it means when it says information is stored. But I guess in a black hole, it's complete entropy to where there's no way to recreate what something was going into it. Is that right?
I'm going to try to shove a pencil in my ear and maybe pick my nose because that's about as much as I can offer to
Okay, all right. I mean, as long as I just
loosely, Hawking was the guy that I think he was initially had said that it was all lost. Then he said no, it might be around the periphery, and the whole thing of like Hawking radiation, and then the idea that they lose mass over time, and that it becomes irretrievable. You can't know certain constants about it. So now there's somebody who's come out and said, no, I think that at certain points you can actually infer a lot about a black hole, that it's not all lost. It's beyond me. And then there's a whole nother argument like black holes don't exist at all. We're wrong. Which I was trying to dig into that a little bit deeper, and then I found this artiil, which just took me in the
turns out it's just Disney trying to forget that awesome 70s movie.
Yeah. So you like UFOs, Brian?
Yeah. I mean, I like them more as IFOs, but I'll take them as UFOs.
You like black holes, Brian?
Yeah. Are you kidding me? I mean, I wouldn't give one a hug.
You like negative energy?
Yeah. Okay. Walk me through negative energy. What does that mean?
It's energy, but it's like, yo, dude, sorry, I can't.
It's always taking a dump on your ideas.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, but like, I just really think there's a lot of
problems. This sucks. That's negative.
Look, man, you can't go starry-eyed into everything, all right? Look, I'm just being real with you is all. Come on, man.
Do you like bears, Brian?
Oh, Jesus, where's this headed? Yeah, I love bears.
Do you like potato chips?
Yeah, I like potato chips.
Do you like guns, Brian?
Like bread?
Yeah, I like guns. This is getting very weird.
All right. Do you like spider bites? Okay, maybe not that. Do you like I don't know. I think. Do you like the color purple?
I mean, the movie or the actual color?
That's just the actual color.
Oh yeah, no, that's a fine wavelength.
Do you like the smell of burning plastic?
Kind of, a little bit. I know I shouldn't.
All right,
you're weird. A grown man naked.
Do you like the idea of an imminent alien invasion, Brian?
Oh, okay. Can I be real with y'all for a second? That's one of those things where it's like, look, we all got to go sometime. And if you could choose before you're born from the great menu of life which generation to be, I got to admit, I would be part of the last generation. I would be the one. I want to be there for doomsday. I would pick from the menu the last generation. So yeah, I guess I do like alien invasions.
All right. So there he is spoken, folks. He spokes the mouthpiece for the aliens.
Benedict Brushwood.
I, for one, welcome our new alien overlords.
Yes. Justin, I sent you the article. Would you care to read this? And the credit goes to the openminds.tv. Maybe a little bit too open-minded.
The work of Roger Marsh that we are reading here. An Oregon witness camping in a remote area near Bonanza reported an odd encounter with a square or rectangular-shaped UFO that seemed to emit a quote-unquote black-like negative energy, end quote, on March 27, 2015. according to testimony in case 64286 from the Mutual UFO Network Witness Reporting Database. The witness said the incident occurred on land, which is extremely remote and with no electricity or water, beginning about 2:10 a.m. when he was inside a tent and heard the sound of what he first thought was a bear eating a bag of chips. A quote from the witness now.
Brown or black bear?
I grabbed my pistol and exited my tent and realized I had a dead flashlight, the witness stated. Then something caught my attention. As I was turning to look, I felt static energy so bad my skin started to itch like crazy, and I felt naked, like my clothes were as light as air or completely being repelled by static. The witness felt as though he had been drugged because, quote, nothing was making any damn sense. Quote, I even considered I got bitten by a spider, scorpion, and was hallucinating. But then the witness realized something was in the sky and he could not identify it. I started calming down and I realized that there was something big in the sky coming in my direction. I became terrified as I realized it was dead quiet and has this static sound. But not just static, it sounded like serious, high voltage static.
Like I'm not just talking static electricity. I'm talking about static electricity that's like working hard to stay still, perfectly static.
The witness described the object, quote unquote. The craft was black like negative energy, a black hole kind of dark. It came in my direction in a curved path from the northeast, mostly from the north, and then slowed down with a faint glow. It looked dark purple, and I could see a greenish blue area from time to time. The witness was very confused.
Have either of you guys seen a blimp at night with its like I guess
I have a photo on my Instagram of one that was just eerie because it was foggy in LA. It was just a really neat thing.
Yeah, well, and it makes that kind of sound that he was describing. Like it's like a they don't
like a didgeridoo.
Yeah, that's right. I'm like, is that pot I smell? What's going on?
Is there anything else in this article that you wanted me to touch on? Because there's a little bit at the end that I wanted to
go for the whole thing, whatever you want.
Okay. Well, I mean, if there's anything else specific, I can read it. But I just wanted to point out that at the end, of course, MUFON, a public resource here to track UFO sightings. It points out that Bonanza is a city in Klamath County, Oregon.
Oh, dude, Klamath County. By the way, if you anyone who has played Fallout 3 or any of the new ones, the original Fallout, that's where it's set. You start just outside of Klamath, although it's a town called Klamath, but it's clearly like that Pacific Northwest region.
Population 415 people. Oregon is currently, mind you, at UFO alert level 5 with 0.77 sightings per million population based on the MUFON February 2015 statistics. Oregon received a total of 3 UFO reports in February.
Now, wait a minute. Does MUFON have like a heat map?
Brian, I'm glad you asked that. Why don't you go to UFOstalker.com?
UFO Stalker. Stalker.
Did you cover the part about him thinking it was maybe an imminent alien invasion, Justin?
No. Hold on. Wait. Let me get to that.
Oh, my God. This is fantastic. UFOstalker.com is my favorite site on the planet.
Okay. The witness felt he was in danger. Quote, I thought, what if it launched ground troops and they're heading my way? Sudden terror hit me. I was wondering how fast I could get to my van and get me out of here. And more dropping balls fell. Wait, hold on, what? And more dropping balls fell at this time. I could see perfectly, and they were slightly different sizes. I had this thought that maybe it's just going to crash and have serious troubles.
And then, earlier he said he saw things like melting plastic dripping off.
Yeah.
Dude, okay, first of all, let me just state for the record that people are all like, how can people think they see things in the sky? It's like, dude, spend some time looking at the sky and just say, I'm just going to look for something I can't explain, and you will find something every single night. Like I had a friend of mine, hardcore skeptic, CJ Johnson, called me, and he's like, look, man, I don't believe, but this thing's doing stuff I don't understand. It's a bright light that's like blinking on and off. It's there and then it's gone, and it's moving left and right and up and down or whatever. And I asked him I actually pulled out Starry Night and had him describe, because he knew a few constellations, and I'm like, okay, look here, up, and is it a little bit higher up? And he's like, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, that's Jupiter. And he's like, no, but it can't be because it like vanishes. And I was like, well, can you see clouds? He's like, no, it's too dark. I'm like, well, I'm in the city and I can see the light reflecting off the clouds. It's spotty, cloudy out there, and you're out in the country where a cloud will go over it and you won't see it. He's like, yeah, but it's moving. I was like, are you surrounded by trees? He's like, well, yeah. He's like, well, those trees are your frame of reference. And when the trees sway, it causes you to perceive not the trees moving, but Jupiter instead. And then he was like, all right. And I ruined it for him.
So on this wonderful map at UFOstalker.com, you can click on, I just clicked on my neighborhood and where I live in Burbank. And I saw right at the end of my block, there was an account.
Holy crap.
100 feet from my door here back in 2005, bright orange reddish light, also a green second one, which sounds like the taillights of a plane, but we'll forget that. And then a couple blocks away, landing witnessed.
What?
Liquid-looking lights that rotated in a circle hovering over a mountain.
Speaking of which, I ran across an article. I was reading crack.com. Did you guys know about Richard Branson's UFO hoax? Have you guys heard of this?
Sounds familiar.
Richard Branson, I'm doing it, Branson UFO hoax. He meant to only just go up. It was an April Fool's prank back in the day. He meant to only go up.
Oh, yeah.
Just over to the park and then land. But instead, winds blew him. So he went on like a much farther journey over, I want to say London. And then eventually they landed in the park. And this is, by the way, for audio listeners, what he did was he had a hot air balloon constructed. This is in the early 80s. He had a hot air balloon constructed with lights inside that flickered on and off. And he went so far, he hired a little person to come with him on his journey. On the off chance that anyone spotted the landing, this thing eventually landed. And they opened it up. They released fog from fog machines. And a little person with an ET mask on comes walking out just so that somebody will crap freaking bricks.
That's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Branson. Always Bransoning it up, that guy.
Yeah, he is.
Like where I'm looking, like there's a hotbed of UFO sightings all over, guys. I don't think Richard Branson can be blamed for all of these.
That's a touche, sir. That's a good point.
Well, do you guys think that this will become more or less of a thing as like personal drones become more and more prevalent? Like, will that increase UFO sightings? Like, are we at a comparatively dormant period? Like,
nobody takes them seriously anymore because of everybody. Every human being now has a portable video camera and a camera, and as we know, credible UFO stuff is just, just doesn't exist anymore because it's just, have all the opportunity to record it and it doesn't. And I think drones and stuff, it's easier now to dismiss it.
Yeah, I gotta believe that's the case where it's like all it is whatever claims there were now more than ever. It's like, yeah, no, I'm sure it was a drone. They're like, no, you don't understand. It moved like nothing else could. I'm like, yeah, drones, they're pretty nutty. They can move weird ways, especially. And in fact, part of the reason that a lot of these sightings get pegged as like supernatural movement is because they'll move like drastically fast, but the problem is it's extremely difficult to gauge distance when you're looking at something in the sky, and something can be a lot closer to you, and when it moves, the parallax is perceived as like supersonic speed or whatever. I gotta feel like having so many drones will demystify the idea of objects in the sky, and that will only oh my god, I just found something just outside my house. Let's see.
Right now, ladies and gentlemen, live on Weird Things, Brian has a UFO outside his house. Breaking.
It seems that on 8/27, no, I'm sorry, 7/10/2014, about a year ago.
That's not right now. Okay. Sorry. My apologies. Go ahead, Brian.
In the city of Dripping Springs, it says, summary, I couldn't possibly describe this event in 25 words or less.
Well, click on the top link and they'll take you to the actual page.
Okay.
Click on where it says UFO sighting.
Yep. It says here, summary, I couldn't possibly describe this event in 25 words or less. That's amazing. Oh, there you go. Sighting details. Hello, my name is Jamie. I live in Dripping Springs, Texas. One of 7 dark sky communities in America. I don't know what that means. Oh, this is true. In Dripping Springs, they have ordinances where you're not allowed to install any street lights that flood the area. Everything has to be kind of like an umbrella style pointing down so that you can do proper stargazing. He says, I'm not sure if this is the reason we see so many things here, but nonetheless we do. I've always been a sky watcher, but recently, since myself and my 2 kids moved in here about a year ago, it's been unusual to say the least. We've watched many, many UFOs streaking or pulsing or wobbling across our sky, but we started noticing a pattern. Then things got a lot more personal. We noticed that almost all the craft were disappearing around the same location in the sky. All of my attempts to capture these have not worked out. I just don't have the capabilities I should yet. Sorry! Here's the weird part.
Jesus, a little defensive.
Yeah, right? Here's the weird part. My girlfriend, who we live with, as it is her house, is not a believer in any way. The other night, out in the jacuzzi, stargazing like we always do, I noticed a bright white light in the sky some distance away and jokingly took out my cell phone and set my light to setting 6 and shined up at it. About 5 minutes later, we noticed a very similar bright white light about the size of a golf ball on the edge of our yard circling towards the jacuzzi. We joked and said, holy cow, it came for a close-up. After 10 seconds, it pused. I think he meant pulsed, about 6 feet away from us. We about jumped out of our skin. Not even 1 second after we were seeing this, a bright white light lit on the jacuzzi. We are now hanging over the edge end, and not the ground in front of us at all. We instinctively looked up and both saw the same thing. A massive, massive craft going about 100 feet over our house, and it was cigar ovalish shaped with 2 diamond-shaped sets of wings.
Diamond Club!
One front and one back. It made no noise and disappeared about 300 feet after it passed the house. She was so scared and confused that she now wants me to do this here. Tell someone. And this is not the only instance either. Like I said, we see UFOs all the time here, but that started the series of sightings and the events leading up to my kids telling me about weird lights outside their windows. I don't think you can directly help us. At least get some proof that we aren't crazy, but maybe this is the first step to getting in with someone interested enough to try. Thank you all for the awesome reporting job you do. Thanks for putting up with one hell of a letter. Any reply is greatly appreciated. Thanks and be blessed. Jay.
Well, Brian, I think the answer is simple.
Well, what is it?
You need to go talk to him.
Oh, I just need to walk out and go interview him. Dude.
Listen, you and James get into the hot tub. You can invite, my place or yours, either way. Like,
we'll live cast that.
We'll just get a real quick soak, and we're just going to get to the bottom of all this.
That's amazing.
Hey, by the way, I'm going to, listen, this might be a little weird, guys. But up here in the Oakland, Berkeley area, apparently it's a hotbed
of science, empiricism, rationality, Silicon Valley, Stanford Research Institution. It's got to be a wasteland, Justin.
Oh, my God. It's a hotbed of UFO sightings. I'm just going by the notes of the ones that are within 5 minutes of my apartment. And I will read them in the order in which I find them enjoyable. First one. In 1962, starlight object approaching John Glenn's space capsule. I have no idea what the hell.
Oh, no! Wait! John Glenn didn't he have wasn't that a scene in The Right Stuff where they were showing embers from a fire up there, and he did report seeing weird crap when he was up in his capsule.
Don't quite know why that is in Oakland, but sure, it's recorded for posterity somewhere. Here we go. UFO. Oh no! Wait, hold on. This was a abduction.
Oh, shoot.
An abduction right around the corner here. This is occurred
1971.
1971. I was driving and lost 2 hours of my life. No lights, just black. But my favorite one is right here on Lake Merritt. If you just go south, drag it south.
Yep.
Here we go. The one next to Children's Fairyland.
Here we go.
UFO sighting, 1984. Summer. It was full of music and dancing.
April Fool's 1984. Interesting.
I was with my crew at Defremery Park doing the moonwalk in my
wearing Egyptian style.
Look at this. Doing the moonwalk in my red Michael Jackson jacket with my Groucho glasses when boom, this sound shakes the hood and we all hit the ground. Then me and my crew want to check it out. So we go in the direction we think it came from because people are all making yah-yah and stuff like it's some block party we ain't invited to. We get there and like we got brothers and sisters from space. I mean, black like me, wearing Egyptian style. This one who came out of the ship, they say his name was Rotan Hotep. He looked kind of like John Amos in The Beastmaster, and he carrying a staff and wearing a trench coat. The woman who came out of the ship, she looked like Shirley Hemphill from What's Happening with gold cornrows. Then their ship starts blasting a sound system. This was 84, so keep in mind, we only had the big boom boxes. I had the big one. We called it Conan X because it was like 10 times the decibels of a regular ghetto blaster and bad to be run on a power generator and cranked up so you couldn't hear the generator. Well, the ship was hovering and so was Rotan Hotep and his Shirley Hemphill looking sister from space, and they'd be dancing to September by Earth, Wind, and Fire. We kept talking about it. I got up in front of my church where I was a pastor in training and told my story, and then I got slapped by the deaconess for blasphemy. I can never forget about it. And seeing the face on Mars, I know it designed it and had white slaves who looked like ABBA carving it. 5,000 years ago, Rotan Hotep and the Shirley Hemphill lady kept dancing and disappeared into their saucer. Then they took off into the sky. People was crying because life was hard in the hood. And there it was, the proof that we were all looking for. The first people were black like us. They even had left the surly bonds of Earth like Reagan said of the Challenger astronauts. This was an uplifting situation. We will never forget it. This is the best website I've ever encountered in my entire life.
You're welcome.
Oh my God, UFOstalker.com. Do you want to see what a UFO report looks like in England?
All right.
Man, I feel like this actually here. Let's do a call to action.
Okay.
We want everybody to go to UFOstalker.com. Email into me, justinrobertyoung@gmail.com, your favorite UFO reporting stories. And as long as we get good ones, we will read one of them on the podcast. How's that?
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to London. Justin, can you do a London accent?
It never stopped me from trying.
Let's see. UFO sighting. Click for sighting details in the middle of London, right on the Thames. There we go. And let me back this out so you can read it. And there we go. Boom.
All right, here we go. On the 5th of October, 2013, at 12:11 p.m., I was having coffee while looking out of my apartment window.
I'm having a laugh.
On the 8th floor of the horizon. Suddenly, I noticed a black oval hovering about roughly 2 kilometers to the south and moving slowly southeast, then stopping and moving again, ascending until it completely disappeared into the clouds above. To the naked eye, the object appeared to have an oval shape. I watched the UFO the whole time between 12:11 p.m. and 12:20 p.m. I grabbed my iPhone and snapped about a dozen pictures during that time. I managed to capture the object in few of the photos, but needless to say, this was the kind of camera that does not have the zoom option nor the best quality. I have uploaded the pictures just to show the object path and the time in each frame. I would like to mention that in the area where I am located, there's a high volume of air traffic. The object did not have the same flying characteristics as a commercial jet or helicopter.
That's amazing. Oh, look, somebody else was on the Thames River and took 3 photos at around those times. You could definitely see something in the sky. Oh, wait, and then somebody says, sorry, that could just be a reflection of ceiling spotlights, as I was inside the city cruise, and the photos were taken through the window.
Thanks, Killjoy.
I mean, listen, there is definitely...
yeah, you could definitely see the interior of the wall.
There's some self-policing here on UFOstalker.com.
Yeah.
Don't bring your weak-ass noise into here. They will shut you down.
That's amazing.
Well, here we go. UFOstalker.com. I don't know if we're going to do anything to beat Roman Hotep, leading the Earth, Wind, and Fire sing-along in Oakland, California.
That was random. That was just the most...
It's pretty great.
But go ahead and...
Shirley Hemphill from What's Happening Now.
Hey. Hey, Raj.
I love that the face of Mars was built by white slaves.
Yeah.
But here, do me a favor. Weird Things Faithful, go ahead through UFOstalker.com. Email justinrobertyoung@gmail.com. Put weird things in the subject line so I know how to sort it. And we will read the best UFO stalker reports here on the podcast going forward if we get good ones. So go ahead, enjoy it, delve into it, and bring back the best, and we'll talk about it.
Heck yeah.
Gentlemen, we have time for another item here. It's a headline. Just actually, I do it real quick, by the way. Delphi, the auto parts manufacturer, they actually had a robocar go cross country. In 99% of the time was human driven. 1% of the time in certain situations they had to, which is a pretty big milestone. And the article that I read that discussed that also mentioned Google says that their robocars can actually understand hand signals from cops.
Wow. So, okay. So what do you think, how do you think that things are going to shake out with the self-driving cars? Because, of course, the squirrely moments on the 99% auto drive across America were, I believe there was one where there was like a construction zone that I got a little confused. And in general, it would overcompensate trying to stay away from big semi-tractor trailers, right?
Yeah, I think, what happens is the first place is that, you're going to use it, at nice shopping malls, that'll say we're robocar friendly. Get out here, let your car go to a parking space.
Oh, see, I think it's going to be just highway. I think that they'll be highway certified, and then once you get on the highway,
I'm going to think that private might be a little bit ahead of public on this.
But private is where it's, in fact, the Google cars, that's where they have the most trouble, is in parking lots, because there's no clear lane. There's so many bogeys, they don't know what to do, and they sort of freeze. Whereas like highway, everything's so clearly defined, and already there's cars on the road that will, make your turns for you.
Well, yeah, we have that, but I'm saying, like, my opinion is, like, I think the places you're going to have your high-end malls, your nice malls, places like that, where you're going to have the more affluent customers who have cars with self-parking capabilities, stuff like that. I think that'll be one of the first places you see it is there, because they can. It's a heck of a lot. I think private enterprise will move a lot faster than public in that regard.
And really, what you are betting on is the combination of the ability for private property to say you can do what you want on our space, and the technology getting to a point where it solves some of those sticky problems that Brian's describing with the current tech, right?
Yeah, I think that, in LA, parking is a pain. Every restaurant, every place like that, it's valet. You go to the nice shopping malls, they have valet. And it's that getting from your car to go to places can be a pain. And I can see that it can be you're going to get the auto manufacturers, whatever, I think, working with some of the property managers of some of these places. Because if you have a nice shopping mall and you say, oh, yeah, this is great, just get out here, let your car park itself, it becomes, a great way to attract the affluent customers. It makes it appear very modern, et cetera. It's a lot easier to do that. And I think eventually we'll get to highways, but I think that, the public and politicians are going to be far, far more cautious about it. In particular, there's a difference between a car moving 5 miles an hour in a parking lot and 70 miles an hour on a highway.
Well, a politician effectively stakes their entire career on betting this, betting on this, right? Because it only takes one person to die for their political career to pretty much be forever tainted.
I don't know that that's the case, because I suspect that what'll happen, and we've talked about this before, but I think 5 years from now, I think that the track record will be in. I think that the public can handle the fact that, yes, we had one death. In the meantime, human drivers have killed 28,000 people this year alone, or whatever.
I'm not saying it's not a good bet. I'm not saying it won't come in. I'm not saying it won't be beneficial to the people that do it. But the first people that put those laws on the books in these early transformative times there will be. I mean,
they're definitely
courage, but there will be stakes to them that will not exist in the same way going forward when what you are describing is indeed the law of the land perception-wise. Yeah,
I do agree that they're betting on a relatively smooth transition, because you're right. If there's some early horrific stuff, especially if somebody makes the case that evil corporate interests have under-researched the downsides of X, Y, and Z, that could certainly be a big negative.
And also, it's one thing if you are just some councilman who's doing it, right? And so you could look at bigger cities, let's say San Jose or other places like that, where you have a future forward kind of industry, that you have friendly city council people that'll want to do it. I could assume, if Palo Alto did it, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. And if something happens, even if it's really, really bad, they can probably survive it. The bigger thing is if, let's say, Jerry Brown in California decides to say that California is going to be the first state to allow this on state highways, and something happens.
Yeah, then it becomes like the Tesla fires, where like any time anyone gets killed, we're like, Governor Brown killed another one with his.
We got over that fast, though. It's amazing how much of a non-issue that quickly became.
Oh, sure. But I'm just talking about in terms of the hyper focus of the press. And I agree. Yeah. I think we'll get past it just like we did with that.
Well, but also it's like the Tesla fires were fires, and you could say that somebody might have gotten, hurt. It was a dangerous situation. If somebody dies on the highway based on, a car, a self-driving car, failing or something like that, then you are going to see a face put to this issue.
I think across the board, you're going to immediately get the full story will always be, oh, wait, it turns out that this driver, disengaged the autopilot mode and wasn't paying attention, or, her knee bumped it, or X, Y, Z. I mean, I think we all agree that this is sort of inevitable, right? This transition towards accepting the self-driving cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. I mean, it seems
just the time frame is the question.
Seems legit. I think the big question in my mind with this is always how, even for me as somebody who wants this to happen as soon as possible, the question is like, well, what happens when people's cars fall into disrepair all the time? People wait too long for maintenance, and they blow out tires, and crazy things happen like that. If there is more of a reliance on that, is the danger greater?
If anything, I think the danger is much, much less, because you can program a car to refuse to drive itself if it's been too long since your last checkup, or if the inspection's out of date, or if the oil hasn't been changed, or if the tires are underinflated. It'll just say like, hey, man, I'll be happy to take you, but you need to fix this first. And
we can put those safeguards in there, but us, like industrial robotics, have a lot of safeguards as far as people being near like that, and we've had a number of accidents where people have been killed by them. Through human error and whatever like that, and you can have a perfect system, but there's always going to be things that can go wrong, and we all know that this is the way of the future. It will be safer. It will be this. It's just the time frame is the matter of debate. And I think I was interesting to me was the fact that Delphi was actively investing in that. That to me was like, we know that there's a lot of people, a lot of players out there. It's not just Google, capable of making very advanced kinds of technology there, that a lot of people are doing this. So
this is the company that makes Oracle software, is that right?
No, this is coming to Auto Parts, they've been one of the largest auto parts manufacturers forever.
Kidding. That's amazing. And so this was just a privately funded, let's throw some money at it.
This is not the Oracle at Delphi.
Yeah, no, sorry, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, sorry. I was like, why did I tie those two words together? And,
Yeah, this company's been around for like 80 years. So,
and this is really, really amazing. And that's what I think, we will see in the next 6 months to a year become increasingly commonplace is just effectively even smarter cruise control. Like when the slow morphing from cruise control to autopilot on, longer highway kind of trips and stuff like that.
I guess that's the reason I think we're going to see it on highway first, Andrew, is because we already have a precedent for that with cruise control and adaptive speed cruise control, and then keeping you in your lanes cruise control, and then at some point it's just ping me when we get within 10 miles of my exit.
I'm thinking of like where Tesla has their supercharger stations and where they have agreements with places, and it would seem to me like Tesla would probably the easiest, most expedient path for them to go to is these malls and places like that, and they say, hey, can we create a zone that we can have Tesla cars operate and go where they can charge, and once they're done charging, back up, go, because they're developing the plug-in, automatic plug-in that have it go park and then move to a non-parking space and a non-charging station.
Well, I think right now the big leap of faith is when does the driver leave the driver's seat?
Yeah.
Right. And so, like in Andrew's example, that's when the driver leaves the driver's seat. The driver gets out of the car drives itself to its parking spot, or it finds something like that. In this like soft morphing of cruise control to
assisted autopilot,
there's still somebody that is in the front seat, and the big question is,
with their hands on the wheel.
Is there a point when you get out, when your prime passenger, the one person in the car, is sitting in the back seat or something like that? I assume we'll have cars designed more for this kind of stuff, but like
my 9-month-old infant in the back seat by himself.
No, I mean,
I'll tell you what, like that sounds horrific right now, but that's going to happen in 20 years. You're going to send your 8-year-old, your 8-year-old is going to say, hey, I want to go to Susie's. You're like, great, make sure, you're like, can I ride my bike? You're like, I don't feel comfortable with you riding your bike. Why don't you call an Uber? And so he calls it Uber, and then a car with no driver shows up and he hops in and then takes that over, because that will feel to parents like the safer of the two options.
And you also have things like, I know a lot of people are like, what? But you think about that too, is you'll look at your watch and you'll have a video feed of your kid leaving your driveway, getting in the car, a video of your kid in the car, and be able to watch that continuous sort of follow, which may seem big brotherish, but when you're a parent, you should be. It's a different situation. I want to shift topics here, gentlemen.
All right.
I found this via the Drudge Report. It is the headline articles from the Washington Post. Tech titans plan to defy death. And it's a Washington Post piece about things we've talked about here before, Google Calico, and all these sort of other efforts of just these internet gazillionaires trying to push back the Grim Reaper, trying to prolong life, trying to basically achieve immortality. And I have to say, the piece is worth reading, but it's very heavy on bioethicists, which are people who live in ivory towers, and are paid to have opinions about stuff and not interact in the real world, with a lot like, well, there's a lot of problems with this, a lot of problems with this, and not a lot of, talking to people who are on the, who have the, the very intelligent answers. And they have things like a graph like, oh, most people don't want to live forever, but it depends on how you phrase the question. If you say, oh, would you want to live to 150? They're imagining looking like a 90-year-old, and having all those sort of, ailments that go with that. When you ask people that question, like, would you like to live to be 150 if you could be as healthy as you are at 40? Majority of people say yes. It becomes a totally different sort of response. How long do you want to live is a graph they have on the right there, and only 8% want to live past 100, because our idea of living past 100 isn't the same as what these people are working for. They have another one, which was this: how much money would it cost if you had to retire at, if you retired at 65 and lived to 150, how much money would you have to put away?
Well, and that's the thing. Look, if you're living at effectively age 40 for an extra 100 years, you're going to be young and healthy and able-bodied. Why would you want to retire? Why would you want to live and do nothing?
I don't want to retire either. Like, my family, like, we don't. My grandfather, he had left from one job and then another job, and he always worked because he wanted to, because he wanted to create value. He would, take vacations and do stuff, but he consulted for electronics firms. He had a very, very full life. My father's been retired from law enforcement for several years. He has another job that he does is, involving fly fishing stuff. He's super active my father, by the way, was out there with a protest flag in Florida when Obama was visiting, trying to call attention to the waterways cleanup, which I thought was funny because, here's my dad, this former federal agent doing Secret Service details out there, doing his protest. But my dad's super active. My dad's like near 70 years old, but he's a super active person, and he keeps up like this, and like that's my model. Like, and so yeah, I think, like you said, Brian, like who wants to retire?
So
can I have I got a scorching hot take on this.
Okay.
People who don't want to live forever aren't happy now, today. So to extend that to infinity is hell. Because if you're not happy today and you don't see happiness on the horizon and you are not an optimist, then like, yeah, why would you want to live forever? Like, life is not fulfilling for you. You are really upset. And like, that's, to me, that's my litmus test whenever I have these conversations with people. It's just like, well, then, you know what, you need to do some work on today. If you're not comfortable with how many tomorrows you're going to have, then you got to figure out what you're doing right now.
I'll tell you what, here's what I can easily picture, because there is a looming, and they bring it up in this article. There's a big pull quote here that says, would it not be the ultimate injustice if only some people could afford a deathless existence, if the world were divided not only into rich and poor, but into mortal and immortal? I could see this being a big, big issue, this whole, one percenters becoming immortal and so on. But it also seems to me like around the time that this happens, around the time that we figure out how to hit the reset switch on, because the only reason we age is because, our body is built to do it. Our body is built to take care of everything and then decide to stop once we've likely procreated and step out of the way. So let's say we conquer that and we're able to be, effectively, 29 or 40 years old forever. It seems to me I could picture a version of reality where the only quote unquote fair way to do it is you are allowed to be immortal if you leave Earth. Like if you want to go out among and help with colonization efforts,
right.
you can.
Right.
You don't see that?
No,
why not?
At all? Because one, they're gonna in that scenario, the most rich, powerful people are the immortals, and so I don't see them passing this law. And also, like, if it's a technology that's going to have a trickle down effect, because it's one of these things where, as we get older, like the problems facing countries right now is they're too old to support themselves, and they have to import people from around the world to bolster their social systems, their security systems, because there's not enough people capable of working and being able to do that. That's, Japan is getting older. They have a negative population. Most of your northern European countries, if you take away immigration, are declining. Russia's declining, and you're getting a bunch of old people. What should you rather have? A declining population of old people who can't take care of themselves, that are very expensive, or a population of old people who are all like 40 and can work and support you? And so, these things affect us all. Like, if the rich have it first, great. There are guinea pigs. Wonderful. Let them be the ones that experiment with this stuff, and then eventually the stuff that works. We have much more advantage having a youthful population than an old population, but you have to leave Earth.
Well, no, my point being that there be some kind of dividing line reason for it that makes the majority of people popular. And you are correct in that if somebody controls all the wealth and, then controls also all the health, then odds are they're going to get their way. Granted. But in the case that there is some kind of uprising or whatever, it seems like there could be some kind of reason, like you got to do blank to get the treatment that keeps you young forever.
Yeah, I just think that, like, I don't know how you control that. I don't know why. I mean, like, I think that, like, one of the biggest, the best thing that can happen for, let's say, in the current world population right now, is helping places like Africa rise to middle class. If we can help these people, if we can already let them do it, whatever, get out of the way when we need to, whatever. But if we can help eliminate disease, do things like, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we can do that, and we can allow these people to live longer lives, reach higher levels of education and do that sort of stuff, we're going to unleash billions of people in technology and intelligence and smarts and human resources that have been stuck, that's going to be great. And I think that, when we start thinking about, when more and more people can have longer lives and can do that and more fulfilling, you have more teachers, more professors, more scientists.
More resources. Yeah. By the way, because we've talked about the work of economist Julian Simon, who, pointed out, they made the famous bet with Paul Ehrlich. Paul Ehrlich says we're all going to starve to death because we have overpopulation. Julian Simon says, no, out of all of our resources, human ingenuity is far and away the most valuable resource, and we have more of it now than ever, and we'll be just fine. Do you feel like that is becoming more pervasive in society, that attitude, that understanding that humans are a resource, or is the idea that we're a burden still overwhelming?
I think that's coming back in a big way, and not to say long term, not to say big picture, but in micro spike, especially here in California with our drought concerns. And I don't want to turn this into a conversation about the California drought because I have a lot of ill-informed opinions about it. But I think, I saw a thing today by somebody for whom opinion that I generally really enjoy that, put the big hot take quote of like, the fact is that Mother Nature did not intend this many people to live in this space and yada, yada, yada. It's like, well, number one, if that's the opinion, I got a news flash for you, bro. Before we started sanding all these edges and throwing IKEA furniture all over the place, like Mother Nature didn't really intend on many people living here. Mother Nature has been bent and intent on murdering all of us in our sleep forever. And it is only because we have kept Mother Nature ball gagged and in a trunk like the Gimp in Pulp Fiction that we can even live our lives and discuss things like the rich getting immortality and our self-driving cars.
Yeah, there are always going to be challenges. There's always going to be that. But I think the most important thing in the universe are humans.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
I mean, until we encounter, some Shirley Hemphill looking aliens.
Yeah. Roman Hotep.
Yeah.
I think humans are awesome. I love humans. The more the better. I think that we're supposed to have run out of oil and food right now, but are for the most part, these are problems. We keep coming up with constantly new solutions, and I think as we expand off planet and are able to develop other resources and we become more efficient at using our own, we see that where there's actually been sort of we reach certain levels of efficiency, technologies make these things possible. We have problems, but read The Rational Optimist, folks, and then we'll talk about this, or read Abundance and then that, and you realize that the problems we're going to face aren't the ones that we see right now. And I think that, I want there to be 1 trillion people out there. I want there to be as many as there are, and every individual pursuing their own pursuits to however they can, and empowered to do that. Not in some claustrophobic sort of, dystopia nightmare, but in a, I like people. I'm sorry. I like people, all right? Is that so wrong?
Well, and it's just, it is easier now to consider yourself living outside of a population cluster than it ever has been before, and it has continued to do so. I think by an exponential growth curve over the last 100 years. There's just from the highway system, to Postmates. It's just it's really easy and rad to live outside of where you would want, where we would think to be the cluster of nonstop innovation. It spreads out further and further.
And the people who say in the chat room, I think there are too many people. Okay, who would you get rid of first? Just make a list. And then people gross okay, why are you still here? Why are you still here? I want you to be here.
Well, no, but keep in mind also. By the way, that's Brant in the chat that you're talking to,
exactly. Why are you still here?
But I do agree that I think that I was talking about this with my parents earlier today. There was some podcast that was talking about how kids just aren't interested in getting their driver's license, because the only reason we wanted our driver's license when we were young was so that we could get the hell away from our parents and go be with our friends and hang out with them. But nowadays that all that is done, virtually, and they have all the freedom. They can go anywhere. They can meet anyone they want. They can experience anything they want. And I think we are going to drift towards that more in general, where it's like the idea of meeting in personal meet space will seem more and more novel in the future. And the friendship of the three of us is a testament to that. I know that you two work together in Florida, but both of you, I'd say 85-90% of all the interactions we've ever had have been virtual like this, either in front of a camera or through Skype or on the phone.
I think that you look at the growth of the popularity of conferences and cons and stuff like that. We've created these all sorts of new. It used to be conventions were things that you did for meetings or clubs or things like that. In the slow evolution of the fan con, and then all of a sudden it's become a big thing where every weekend you hear about some new big thing, and the idea of, hey, we're going to live virtually, which we do now, but then let's all get together and let's have these things and then share our diseases together and come back with the con flu.
Sure. I mean, but it's novel and precious for its novelty, whereas like the idea of actually hanging out with someone in person was not novel to us. It was the only way you had a true friendship when we were kids.
Yeah. Gentlemen, should we move on to picks?
Yeah, man. Hey, before we do picks, can I just toss out what I assume is sort of a whispered pick of all three of us? After last week, the HBO documentary Going Clear came out.
That was actually going to be mine.
Right on.
So if you have not seen it, I do recommend it. In general, I can kind of take or leave Alex Gibney's work. I think he is not like Michael Moore level propagandist, but very often his work are op-ed pieces that tend to wear the suits of I'm a
investigative,
objective, fact-finding journalist kind of stuff. It's very well done. This is extraordinarily well put together. It's largely based on the book Going Clear, which is based on a lot of high-ranking former, a recent defector Scientology lieutenants. It's not exactly groundbreaking if you've read books like Inside Scientology, and in some cases omits stuff that Inside Scientology has, I think, a little bit more of a startling kind of view on, including some of the level of harassment that Scientology put to the IRS to get their religious exempt status, and completely leaves out the death of Lisa McPherson in Clearwater, Florida, which I thought was a slam dunk to get mentioned in that documentary, because the photos and the visual evidence of her state, even in a without seeing it full on, is jarring.
But yes, it is as far as storytelling. As far as the reality of what it took, HBO has famously announced that they have a team of 150 lawyers making sure everything's ironclad that's in the documentary. My guess is that just looked like too dangerous a thing for them to push in the documentary.
There are ways to mention it without. I'd love to hear the story, because like Justin, there's a lot of things like, they only have a certain amount of time to tell the story they want to tell. And he told the story he wanted to tell. And I was left going, well, if you're talking about the church today, there's a lot of interesting things and questions like, and there may be, the whole thing like, like what happened to Miscavige's wife. And it may be like, oh no, well, we found her or whatever. Then talk about that too, Then, if she's, no, everything's cool or whatever, like that should be. I was sort of like, well, there's some big things that people are like, what happened here that hasn't been addressed, but I don't know. I would love to know the story of how they chose what to do, because it should be a Vice TV series about this.
Yeah.
And my guess is they wanted everything to have first person on camera narration to it. And that would be my guess as to why they went into the stuff that they did and they didn't go into the stuff that they didn't. Because even the Travolta and Cruise stuff, they have people who were personally there and involved in it going over stuff. But like any Scientology expose, you can see the hallmarks of it being readied for battle with little there is subtitles on things that seem to be fairly obviously added late in the game, where they give credit to John Travolta or Tom Cruise, deny that this happens. It's interesting. I like Andrew. I think I would have liked to have seen more of the stuff that I think is fairly already reported and has stood up to lawsuits. Like St. Petersburg Times or Tampa Tribune and St. Petersburg Times have done tremendous work on Scientology, and specifically the McPherson death. And I think there's no reason why you can't kind of go into that. But that was a choice by the documentary, and I don't think it suffers for it. I was just curious about it.
I would say there was we had a lot of Paul Haggis, who I think is interesting, but it was not clear how involved was he, recently. I mean, he's a very compelling person, and I found it but it was just this we understood how he got into it and then when he left, but there wasn't a lot of stories about him in the last 10 or 20 years about it, which he should be part of it. Then I'm like, are they putting too much focus on him because he's such a prominent, articulate person at the expense of other cases?
I will say that as somebody, you're right in that there weren't a lot of surprises if you've read any of the backstory. Although from the chat, it looks like a number of people just didn't know any of this stuff. They had maybe seen South Park and that was it. But the for me, for someone who had read Inside Scientology, I didn't read Going Clear, but I, back in the late '90s, I would read all the Operation Clambake stuff at Xenu.net, and for somebody who knew enough of the story, there were very few surprises, but the access they had, the inside Scientology videos that they were able to show, to see David Miscavige, I mean, it's bone chilling when the story from him, and you see him on this fascist looking set, this lone figure with flames behind him, talking about how they're going to take over the world, essentially. I mean, it's fantastic. It was chilling to me.
It absolutely worth checking. I guess my point is more of did they make this choice? Was this the best journalistic choice, or was it done more because of a sensational sort of point in some instances? But absolutely see it. Please, please, please see it. Very, very well done. Very, very, very good overview. And then check out the Scientologist rebuttal they put on YouTube. If you type in Going Clear in YouTube, they have a 7-minute mini doc they put there. They seem very upset about the use of ants for some reason.
Oh, really?
They start off with their the first thing is, well, Alex Gibney's father did blankety blank. It's like, all right, that's not how you construct a really good rebuttal, number one, But,
yeah. Also, I got my own problems with Alex Gibney as a documentarian, man. There is plenty of his work that I kind of feel sort of takes liberties with facts, and he is all about making his own points. I mean, let's not forget, man, let me make sure that I am not confusing him with another documentarian, but he recently made a movie all about defending the former governor of New York that fell into disgrace because of his hooker scandal.
Line number 9, that was him.
Yeah, that based all upon the idea that it was a conspiracy by the banks for whom he was righteously trying to take down, that they sullied his good reputation as a fighting champion. So I have questions about Alex Gibney's choices on stuff, and I have in the past. And if I were Scientology, that's where I would go with my rebuttal against it. However, Gibney does a great job of insulating himself, and that's why he doesn't do stuff like the McPherson stuff if he isn't able to get somebody that was in the room with her on camera talking about stuff like that, because he wants every instance that they talk about, he's got somebody that was first person in the room talking about it, and that's, I think it certainly speaks well to the credibility of the documentary, not to mention, the legal seafaring, element to it, so it doesn't just get destroyed in court.
I'm going to do my pick. Road Warrior. 24 hours left to buy it for $10 on iTunes.
Wait, you're talking about the second movie in the Mad Max?
Mad Max 2, as the rest of the world knows it. Which I had a conversation with an Australian last night. I mentioned, like, he said something like, "Oh yeah, I just watched Road Warrior." Like, never heard of him. I'm like, what? It's your Citizen Kane. Are you kidding me?
Dude, it's
and
fantastic.
I realized that he knew it there as Mad Max 2. Road Warrior, Mad Max 2. It is. I watched it again. What a perfect little movie. What a wonderful, solid movie. And we have, Fury Road coming out soon.
Refining they are, ka-chunka chunka.
Yeah, it's so minimal but so well done. So that's my pick. I think
I adore that movie the most because its scale. Its scale is so small that there's nothing for it to trip over. It's a single conflict in a wide world, and you get the sense that this world is filled with conflicts like this. And it's a single man doing a single good deed for a single group of people, and it's delightful.
And the feral kid, like, I always forgot how much I enjoyed that little role of that kid.
A clever man would have a trap in there or something.
The humongous
about that movie and all of those movies, and including Fury Road. There's something, and this might come off as a little possibly up too bigoted, but I'm just gonna say it. There's something about the Australian identity as it is understood internationally, and the fact that so much of that country is kind of
wasteland,
barren, right? That it's like, I never feel like we're more than 5 years away from that being actual Australia. Like, there is a believability to that it's like, I feel like there is, like, the soul of Australia is kind of like, if all of a sudden global calamity, everything falls apart, that there's a part of Australia that's like, finally, let it begin.
I got a pick, and this only just dropped a few days ago.
Dianetics.
I have to thank. I was listening to 99% Invisible. They were making an audible pick, and I was like, oh crap, yeah, that would be great. I'd love to listen to that. So it's from the author of The Psychopath Test, John Ronson. His new book, So You've Been Publicly Shamed, starts off with a vignette talking about how righteous it felt to be part of a movement on Twitter to criticize somebody who had done wrong. And the people spoke, and this guy got fired, and that was really great. And how wonderful that the people are empowered, which got him looking into the changing face of shaming in human society, and he goes back. You see modern examples like the chick who tweeted going to South Africa, hope I don't get AIDS, haha, I'm white, and tells her story. He meets with her, and same with the there's another girl who took a goofy photo where it looked like she was screaming and giving the middle finger at Arlington Cemetery in front of a sign that says "Respect and silence, please." And then he goes back and talks about how shaming used to be a big part of punishments in civil and legal courts. You put them in the stocks for 4 hours. And meanwhile, you had people who they were begging to take their whippings before the sun came up so that few people would watch. And it's there's another story of a kid who at the age of 17 was drunk driving and killed someone. And his punishment was to send a $10 donation every single Friday for the next 10 years or whatever. And he stopped doing it, not because he couldn't afford it, but because he could not handle writing her name over and over and over again. It was just brutal. And the reason that we don't shame in public is because people literally would choose to die before they would choose to handle that shame. And there's even some fantastic evidence that people who become serial killers, almost all of them, go back to some event in their childhood for which they were profoundly shamed, and it's some deep need that they need to feel powerful, and that's why they pull guns, and that's why they kill people, is because it makes them feel respected in those brief moments. It's terrifying, really insightful, interesting stuff. It's narrated by the author. John Ronson's stuff is great. If you don't want to listen to this, at least listen to The Psychopath Test. It's and I think I'm going to dive in on. He's also the guy who wrote The Men Who Stare at Goats. So I'm gonna do that one too.
That's the thing that's disconcerting the most, I think, about where online media has gone is that for bloggers to whip up a fury and commentators to do that, that's a measure of their power, is to try to start a war, to start something, to bring shame on something. And there isn't a whole lot of call for, well, let's wait, let's get the facts, let's do this. And we've seen this to disastrous, events in places, Ferguson and elsewhere, where people stoke the flames even further, where there are injustices and things that need to be addressed, but not through the mob. That's not the way to do it, because the mob just creates more injustices and more problems and makes the problem worse. And people don't want to acknowledge them. People don't want to accept responsibility in doing that. And I think individually, before you pick up that pitchfork, don't, get the facts. And I think that comes from people with low self-esteem, insecurities, people who are depressed are often the quickest to do this, because once you point your finger at somebody who says something stupid, then you got to jump all over. It's like YouTube is filled with very unhappy people who just live for somebody to put something up there for them to make fun of or tear apart because they hate themselves.
Yeah. It's, it is a fascinating thing, and we've seen it, most recently with Trevor Noah, the new Daily Show host, who was announced. People looked through his Twitter feed, and he had what I would consider to be some kind of cruddy things on his Twitter feed, that were a little, tasteless and not particularly funny, and I would even go so far as to say maybe revealed, and we don't know much about him beyond what he has publicly decided to put out there, but every little bit does, I think, add up to who you are, if even just in the microcosm. It made me think a little bit less of him. Done no favors by his very smarmy looking press photo that they put out along with his announcement to the Daily Show. If you've seen that, it's like, it is so rough for him, because they decided to go with a very like devilish kind of like, I'm gonna be funny on the Daily Show and you better watch out.
Is this the one? This is the first thing that popped up.
There's another one that has kind of gone. It's like him in a bit of a gray suit, but I'm sure if you just Google image search Trevor Noah, it'll pop up. There we go. The one to the far right.
Oh, Jesus.
So it's like
he's doing like his Jack Nicholson impression. Yeah.
Jewish people and like fat chicks and stuff like that. And like, that's the photo that goes on top of everything. But immediately, you see a lot of people that are, oh, he should get fired. He should never host the Daily Show, yada, yada, yada. And like, then you get the counter reaction to that. And like, oh, well, this is a outrage culture, and you should be, now we will shame the outragers and we should shame the shamers. And it is a weird transitional period that we are in, right now, in terms of understanding what this kind of stuff means and what the consequences are, because I do think it is evolving. But it's a question as to how fast it goes.
Well, and it's difficult. You can't ever totally divorce the art from the situation under which you read it. And having been somebody who 2 years ago posted a controversial episode of Scam School that some people actively tried to stir up some pitchforks and try to get a shame campaign on me for, because for whatever reason, like it was really chilling and fascinating to me to see what sticks and what doesn't, because he talks about people who full on newspapers talk about, oh, this prurient, shameful, how dare you, this sex dungeon that you run with your Nazi costumes and whatever, and just none of it stuck. And mainly they got things factually wrong. So he countersued. He sued News of the World, or I forget what it is.
You're talking about the F1.
Yeah, the Max, what's his name guy. Yeah, the whole thing in there.
Formula One head who there was pictures of him in compromising sexual positions in which people were role playing as Nazis.
They weren't talking about any of our own Nazi sex dungeons.
Yeah.
No. Well, and the reason he won the lawsuit is because it's there were uniforms, they were shouting in German, but there was not a single Nazi anything. And so he nailed them on the fact that they called it a Nazi themed thing, and he said it wasn't, and that's why he won.
Rules are also very different in Britain for that kind of stuff than they are here in the United States.
But and just to taking it back to just the shame, I was interested. I think like the Trevor Noah thing is that you had part of it too. Is he has a lot of fans that I would say that many of his supporters are people who are quick to shame other people and say, look what this person said, look what they said there, And then it becomes the defense is like, well, he's a comedian. And it's like, well, the comedians get special. You're like, we're all comedians now, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've said stupid stuff. So I'm not wagging my finger at this guy at all, you know? So, but it is that thing where it's this, you know, put away the pitchforks, try to understand things. And, you know, it's always surprising to me when people who are caught off guard, you know, who are think, you know, they're right-minded or in the right and do in meaning that, you know, the properly, they think they're PC, they say these things, whatever, and then they get caught in that firestorm because they didn't realize it. No, you're not allowed.
Yeah.
There we go.
You're not allowed.
We solved it all. So do me a favor and listen to John Ronson's book. It's way good.
Gentlemen, it has been weird.
That's what you say.
Mm-hmm.
Shirley Hempel dancing.
What's happening? Oh,
Let's go back to Mars.
What's this built the Mars face?
Yeah, all right. Bio break for a moment. Are you gonna hang around, Justin, or should I throw some music on?
No, if there's music on, I'll go get a glass of water.
Random old shit. There we go. BRB, 75 minutes, 30 seconds. Neshcom. I'll see you in a second.
She flicks a stirring straw. As if her latest boyfriend wasn't waiting in the car. Cassette of Bridget, bye-bye, she flies. And I could jump like a jack, but I'll never get that high. There's a crack in my chest and I'm nobody's fool, I guess. Nothing else, but I know that'll be cool unless I forget and it happened with you, Bridget. I confess. Cassette of Bridget. Cassette of Bridget, yeah. Cassette of Bridget.
Ideas for title.
Rotan Hotep.
Yes.
Was it Rotan? Honep? It was like there was. I didn't think there was two T's. Let me check on it again.
Like the Rotan, Hotep, Hoedown in Oakland or something.
Yeah. Man, that turned out to be pure gold.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Let me zoom in on good old Oakland. No. I am gonna zoom in and see where I can find Lake Merritt.
Rotan the accuser.
There we go.
You know, it comes out Friday, Brian.
What is it?
Daredevil on Netflix.
Oh, that's right. By the way, the kids have already they found Inspector Gadget's Netflix relaunch on their own, and dove in, and it was amazing for me to point out like, hey, you know, Josie, that part of the reason we named Penny was because of this character. And Josie's like, but it's a new show. And I was like, oh, child.
Oh, no, it's not. It was called Get Smart.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
How is it?
You know what? It was made in France.
They're Richie Rich. Like, I watched that, and it was made for like $1. And some of their kid stuff looks like it's just super cheap.
Yeah, the full disclosure, the kid who I only watched like half of the first episode, and it was interesting to see what they're going for on the Richie Rich thing, because they're trying to do that Disney Channel thing, where it's like, you know, there's a template for all those Disney Channel shows, and the folks at I guess It's a Laugh Productions have that thing locked down. Dan Schneider's the executive producer, and you could tell they're trying to follow in that. The accountant kid that is always bemoaning the expenditures from Richie Rich is like a #1 super fan of Scam School, and in fact I met him. Wait, you were there? Wait, did we go see? No, wait, who did I? It was me and Tom, and who else saw Guardians of the Galaxy together?
Oh, it wasn't me.
Okay, there was somebody else. Shoot, I'm blanking on it. Oh no, it was Rob Krekel. That's who it was. At any rate, before Guardians of the Galaxy, his mom wanted to work out a chance to introduce him to me, and he's a super cool kid.
So
here we go. Hang on,
yeah,
I'm just gonna copy this.
Like, It's a Laugh. Wait, Dan Schneider's with Nickelodeon, right?
No, I don't think so. I'm almost certain it's like Dog with the Blog and Jesse and.
Because he did like Drake and Josh, iCarly, Victorious, and that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Actually, now I think about it, maybe I am mixing it up. I didn't think so.
Yeah, because It's a Laugh is actually owned by Disney, and that's the one that does like. But anyhow,
man, maybe I'm mixing them both up.
I watch those shows. I mean, like, I like those Disney and Nick. I think they're really well done. They're tightly put together. Sort of the Richie Riches felt so sparse to me.
Yeah, it was feeling the restrictions of its budget.
Maybe, yeah. I think that maybe the talent will certainly be there. But yeah, it's interesting. But it's an interesting model to see. I'm excited to see where they go with it. And that was like my thing, Man in High Castle. Like, I'm excited that that's, on Amazon, that's going to get a series, because like my criticisms about the pilot were, it needed more resources and probably a bigger commitment.
Needed money, yeah.
Did you see Twin Peaks is canceled at Showtime?
Wait, they're not going to do it after all?
And apparently, according to David Lynch, it has been canceled in development.
Wow. I did not see that.
Well, we're getting X-Files.
We're getting X-Files. And I would suspect there are enough players in this game that would like to be in the Twin Peaks business if they are at some level of if it was a network decision, that somebody will probably give money to David Lynch to do something in that vein. But
have you guys watched Community since it went to Yahoo?
No, I'm not really up to date on it. So
I neither am I, but I watched the first half of it mainly just to kind of gauge production quality and to see how much it felt like, what I'd seen of the other Community. It's double fascinating. Of course, I'm much more interested in listening to Dan Harmon publicly air out his anxieties about how, no matter what you do, it falls short of what you want it to be. And he's not shy about saying how, I wish I'd made it good. I'm sorry, people. I bled for you and it wasn't enough.
Yeah, no, I Community is kind of like South Park, where like one day I'm just going to not be as busy as I am right now, and I'm going to watch all of it. And I'm probably going to really enjoy it, because I'm sure it's awesome. Except for the one season that everybody universally agrees is terrible.
Yeah. Rotan Hotep.
We ready to start after things?
Hotep Hoedown.
Yeah. Rotan Hotep Hoedown. Okay, we are now at, Mr. Bryce, we are at 84 minutes. So whenever you want, Andrew.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to After Things.
We're so sorry. Justin couldn't be. Wait, what?
Wait, I'm Andrew Main. That's Brian Brushudy here. And then who is that on the video to our right?
Sorry to crash the party, boys. I know this is normally just a makeout sesh between you two goons, but I'm busting in.
Right on.
No.
So we were talking about. You mentioned during the show something you wanted to talk about in After Things. Do you remember what that was, Andrew?
Oh, you have the Elvis story to tell.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, no, that was in the context of talking about like we're able to do what we do because we have a wonderful group of people who are part of our community here who support us. And we're talking about the brand new DiamondClub.tv interface done by Sergeant Mefford, and Brian will like, hey, can somebody fix this? And it's funny to me because like I watched you like, oh, somebody go log into this and do that, and somebody go do this and stuff, and how we're kind of living in an age of where it's possible for people to collaborate with us and help us like this, and we're getting closer to that kind of future where like if depending on what room I'm in, I either ask for Siri or Alexa to like tell me the weather or whatever.
How are you liking Alexa? I guess that's the Echo is the object.
She says it's not the kind of thing she's capable of. So they have their strengths and their weaknesses. What I like about Alexa is just I don't have to say like, "Hey Siri," I can just say Alexa and ask her to do something.
Yeah.
I would say that her intelligence is much more limited than probably Google or Siri in many respects. It's great for, if I want to know the weather, if I want to know if I'm heading out the door, it's in, right by my front door, I can ask, what the weather's like. If I want to know, play music, it's great for that. I haven't been using her for a lot beyond that because, how far is it from the Earth to the moon? Excuse me. Alexa, how far is it from the Earth to the moon?
The moon's distance is 239,000 miles.
So she gave me a factual answer on that. That's good.
That's
Alexa.
pretty fast too.
Alexa, what's 1,000 divided by 3?
I can't find the answer to the question.
She can't find the answer to that.
What? Right, got it.
Hold on. What's 1,000 divided by 3?
Checking my sources. It looks like the answer is approximately 333.333.
I cannot think of anything more Andrew Main than sitting in your laboratory of 3D printing machines talking to your two robot slaves and and quizzing them to figure out who's smarter than the
What
other.
we like to call a 2015 three-way. Oh, yeah.
So if I don't have two ladies vying for my attention, I'm doing something wrong. But it's interesting. I mean, I look at it where I look, how do I use it? And for me, like Alexa can also like tie into like the Fire TV and the other stuff, which you can have like display stuff there, which is kind of a neat idea. I am super excited about. We have the Apple Watch coming out in 5 days. You'll be able to pre-order, and then we'll have them in 9 days. It'll be there. The reason, let me explain why I'm excited about this. I've been listening to the book, Becoming Steve Jobs, and I'm really loving the book, by the way. Really, really, it's a very, 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 and having read every biography I ever could have before, I read biographies about him in the 1990s and stuff. I think it's a really good overview, and it talks about what was different about him how did the guy who got kicked out of Apple become the guy that helped Apple become the largest and most powerful, or one of the richest companies in the world? What happened? It wasn't the same guy. Things changed, and he goes a lot into the experience at Pixar and learning from Ed Catmull, who's sort of one of the unsung people in the business world, who's considered one of the greatest business leaders there ever was, who's a doctor, PhD in computer science, who had to learn how to become this person, and how Steve Jobs learned from him and other things. But anyhow, I get to the point where they talk about the different eras of technology, how we had the PC, and then it really became about small business and then bigger business of the PC becoming something for enterprise. And then the internet came along, and then computers became off the internet, and that gave way to things like mobile, and then how the computing changed. And now with the introduction of wearables and all the attention that can be thrown onto the Apple Watch is the idea that how do you take everything that's in your watch and how do you take all these things like Alexa or Siri or Google and all that, how do you use all this artificial intelligence and smartness to get you to do the things we do in the world right now through such a tiny interface via voice, or just very simple, have it know what we want? And it's going to be a big thing. And I don't know if that's going to be the Apple Watch that's the thing, or Android Wear or whatever, but it's all about, touch touchscreen interfaces were about taking all the complexity of computers, like keyboards and mice and all that, and saying, make the app as simple as possible, reduce it to that, press this, do this, simplify the way you approach it, and it gave way to all sorts of interesting applications. Now, as we funnel all of that into one small little interface, things have to get smart, like Star Trek-like computers. They have to have an idea of what the hell we're talking about or what situation.
How long until we start to see, and I'm sure there's some kind of experimental stuff already out there for it, but how long until we see on a practical level sub-vocalization as a method of data entry, where it's like you basically mouthing the words and maybe just barely exhaling while you do so, but not engaging your vocal cords in order to write stuff down?
You mean like Himalayan throat singing?
No. In fact, the reverse. Like Himalayan throat singing is
Wrong.
Is double vocalization.
And just enters in all of my thoughts perfectly.
I think interface questions are interesting, and interface questions, they're the ones that we think of the most. If you go back and you watch it's called, ever seen The Mother of All Demos? The back 1968 when Douglas Engelbart displayed.
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, I just listened to I think it was a 99% Invisible about that.
So 1968, Douglas Engelbart did this really cool tech demo. It's called The Mother of All Demos now, where he displays the future of computers. This is 1968. He uses a mouse. He uses a keyboard. There's window type things, or sort of like showing how information can be organized differently. And he also has off to the side a 5-key keyboard called a chording keyboard, which allows you to use a different combination of keys to connect. And that's the thing we forget about. We saw the mouse, we saw the keyboard, and there was this other device because they were thinking like, this is this other way to input and whatever. And it turns out a keyboard and a mouse is really, really good. There have been multiple attempts to try to introduce that other thing, but as machines have become more intelligent, we haven't really needed them. As graphical interfaces have become much more, as we've had the spare processing power to do that. So when you ask me about like sub-vocalization, stuff like, I don't know. And I think that the thing that kind of excites me right now are the questions about how do we make these things smart enough to know what we're going to want and simplify the things that we, are going to ask for. And you see that, you watch the Apple Watch demos where you get a text message from, Brian says, hey, what time are we going to do the podcast, And it's smart enough to be able to say, oh, he's asking a time, and I can respond now, later, whatever, do you want to get Chinese or Italian? And it can tell you, it can say, do you say Italian or do you say Chinese? These things, the ability of these intelligent assistants to parse this information and to simplify our options, that's really excited right now. As far as sub-vocalization and other ways of input, I don't know. I don't know.
By the way, breaking news.
Craziest thing about that demo is it was on Periscope.
Back in 1964, they were sitting on it for a long time. We were talking about the David Lynch Twin Peaks on Showtime, and apparently there's like an official announcement saying that Showtime did not pull the plug on Twin Peaks. After 1 year and 4 months of negotiations, I left because not enough money was offered to do the script the way I felt it needed to be done. So I guess in that regard, I think your prediction stands that somebody else can come along and offer the right amounts in order to get him to do it.
Well, I mean, then it's basically David Lynch had an argument about the budget, and David Lynch said, I'm not doing this unless I get the budget that I want. And so now Showtime would have to cancel Twin Peaks for Twin Peaks to do something with David Lynch. However, I think David Lynch's idea is like, well, you can't do Twin Peaks without me. Everybody will think it's crap. Right. So good luck.
Yeah. Interesting.
Hey, wait, we never got the Elvis story. You got to tell the Elvis story.
So, as a comedian I know, he was telling the story about, we're talking about when you start to live in a world where people kind of can meet every whim, everything you want.
Yeah.
He talks about how he was in a suite in Las Vegas. He got to talk to Elvis. He's like, his kids, he's a young comedian way back then. He's in the suite with Elvis, and Elvis is sitting there, everybody's around him, and Elvis has got his gold revolver on his waist. He's like, hey, Elvis, why do you have a gold-plated gun? And I was like, oh, well, I just got off stage, I forgot to take it off my costume. I forgot to take it off. He's like, oh, well, why do you have a gun on stage? And Elvis was like, well, you never know when karate is not enough. Well, what do you mean? Like someone could be attacked me. It's like the karate, but the karatel's not enough. Have a gun. It's like, and this guy says, "What if there's a sniper in the balcony?" Elvis like, oh, I've thought about that. I don't know. And Elvis starts to get a little concerned about this. And two people grab this comedian. They grab him, yank him out of the room, and pull him in the other room and say, listen, we got to talk to you about how to play with Elvis. You can't ask Elvis those kinds of questions. If you want to play with Elvis, then you've got to, don't say stuff like that. And it was just because he lives in his own sort of bubble where he's not thinking about, Elvis, I'm going to carry a gun on stage. That's a great idea, Elvis. That's great. That's you never know who's going to come and try to attack you. Like, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. This was like, Elvis was having all these top karate experts there, and he would fight with them, and they'd be like, oh, Elvis, you got me. Oh, man, that kick was good. Oh, that kick to my knee was, oh, that was bad. Elvis would pull out this big wad of bills, grab a few and hand them like, here, sorry about that. Here you go. Thank you very much. These guys would go out into the hallway, and if some of the karate guy and Elvis were like, oh, sorry about that, he'd pay him off, and they'd be in the hallway comparing how much money. Like, oh, you made $2,000? I only made $3,000. Or you made $4,000? Whatever. I'm going back in there. Like, oh, Elvis, my ribs. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know how hard I was going to kick there. Here you go.
So great. How to play with Elvis.
How to play with Elvis. That is you can find yourself in situations like that, like entertainment, where all of a sudden people are catering to you, where you're on a set and all of a sudden there's an umbrella over you and somebody's handing you a soda and you're like, yeah, I can get used to this. And it's like, well, that's not a normal person. Normal people don't have other people catering to them like that. There's a point at which, get your own damn soda. There's a point at which you have to sort of, not try to relish in the idea that you have people subservient or whatever to you. That's not a healthy thing, in my opinion.
Agreed. Hey, speaking of healthy, last week, you remember I announced my crazy vegetable eating shenanigan. I logged every single calorie all day long. I ate primarily spinach, kale, the broccoli, carrots, celery, and then like.
Wait, give me a refresher on this since I wasn't here.
Oh, I just I just realized like after I had been on a pretty good health kick for a good 45 days or so, and then South by Southwest happened, and it was this constant parade of entertaining people and going out and just shoving barbecue and beer in my face, and then I looked back, I was like, well, crap, I'm back to where I was, and then some, and then. It turns out I'm going on vacation to sunny Las Vegas, and I realized I only had 2 weeks to do something about my weight, and so I wanted to try something a little more extreme. So I've just been eating all vegetables, and it's like a copious volume of it. It's pounds and pounds of it, and I told myself I could go to 1,250 calories, and but the first 4 days I didn't. I would barely crack 1,000 because I was just full and didn't want to eat anymore. And so like no booze, no nothing. And then last night, I guess today we had Easter dinner with all the family and stuff. So after 7 days of it, I lost 3 pounds and have continued to work out a lot. So if I get half these results, I'll have lost 5 pounds by the time I take that little vacation and hopefully look a lot better.
Can I tell you a crazy, weird thing, which I want to throw to here?
Sure.
I was in Las Vegas earlier this week and ate a lot. Not a lot, but I ate a lot, drank a lot, so scared of being dehydrated. I got back here. I weighed myself. I weighed like 197.
Is that
right?
That's up, I assume.
That's I would say, yeah, that's high. That's like the highest I've weighed in like forever, right?
Because you're a taller guy than me, right? I'm only 5'6.5". You're what?
Yeah, I would. I mean, that's not like, it's not that's way outside my kind of like, I like to be like under 190,
Got it.
If I've been working out. If I'm not been working out, I need to be like 180. So anyhow, weigh like 197, right? I'm like, wow, like I'm right. I'm like feeling like the most gluttonous. Like I'm like, all right, this is bad. I'm a horrible person. I've got it out of control, whatever, So I watch when I eat. I go for a couple walks, whatever, like that. And I go take a longer walks at night, like double my walking. I try to walk like 5 miles a day, whatever, like that. 3 days later, 187.
What? God, that's amazing. I'm so jealous of all you tall
It had to be.
people.
I'm not, but there's no. I could not. It's physically impossible.
Had
for
had
me
to be all water
burn.
weight or something, right?
It had to be. It had to be. But I didn't feel dehydrated. I think I just, for some reason, the hot air, whatever, or salt, I was just so bloated with water or whatever. But it was fascinating to me because it was like, I'm like, oh man, because like I was like, I've been under 190. I was proud of myself for like staying under there, whatever. And then I'm like, oh, 197. Like, oh, I've got a long road to catch there.
Well,
and like 3 days later, I'm like, what?
That's the funny part was as I started it, I was recording my weight both when I went to bed at night and when I got up in the morning. And I was at my target weight, what I always want to be is 142, but to be honest, I'll be happy if I'm at 145. But I was up to I went to bed Sunday night after we talked at 156 and then woke up at 154 and a half. And then that night I went to bed at 156 and then I woke up at 153 and a half. Then that night I went to bed at 156 and then woke up at 152 and a half. I mean, it's insane. So this morning I woke up at like 151 and a half. So it's like I there's variability, but it's, I don't know, man, weight be weird.
Yeah, but I mean, I think a large part of what we lose is the respiration, is the carbon that we put off in breathing. I mean, there's that other process too, but that was weird for me. I was just one of those things like, man, I was like 10 pounds in like 3 days. And like, it was water, but it wasn't like I wasn't dehydrated at that period too. I think I was just so, over.
Yeah.
So,
well, at any rate, I guess today's the day off because we had the family over, but then I'm back to it for the rest of this week, and I'll report next week how it actually worked out.
Yeah, this weekend has been a startling reason on why I should be getting married, and I'm happy that I am because I've done. Ashley's out of town for the American Atheist Conference in Memphis, and literally just sat around and just ate.
And plus you eat healthy, right? Because she does everything vegan for you.
I mean, yes and no, because I'm out of town so much, so I'm just eating garbage constantly, and then she cooks really, really good vegan food, which is very often not exactly health food. It has just different ways to get salt and fat, or fat-like tastes, which are very often just as bad, if not worse, for you than other stuff. But even then, there's at least an element of moderation or restraint, or hey, we should go and do something, or hey, we have something to do. Not this weekend, man. This weekend was just banging out Black Rock Mountain and watching Better Call Saul and watching the Scientology documentary. My big excursion today was to go walk down to go get coffee and a breakfast sandwich.
That's amazing.
And it was big deal. Big deal.
Do you want to get in shape? Are you motivated, or is it just sort of along with learning to speak Spanish?
It's the mind is there. I don't know how willing the body is. I want to not look like the fattest I ever have on my wedding day. That'd be a nice.
Are you at the high end of the scale right now?
I haven't weighed myself, but I feel fatter than I normally am. So I would like to do it. It's and it's sometimes when you match up,
fatty. Come on.
Well, I just mean schedule.
Hey.
There's always going to be a reason when you can pawn it off on schedule irregularity. It's so much of getting in shape is managing calories, eating a lot of the same stuff every day, sticking to a schedule, and building your kind of your existence around that and your productivity around those kind of highs and lows. When you have an irregular schedule, it's harder to it's harder to do that. But even then, that's an excuse. I mean, there are people that have had my job that have run ultra marathons. So it's there really is no excuse,
And that's the problem. I never allow myself to blame my schedule. I never, because, and whether it comes to writing or anything else like that, because it is, there are people there are single moms with 5 kids who are finding the time to get up a half an hour early to go do stuff. There are people out there who are managing their time a hell of a lot better. Bad time management, can certainly be it's an explanation, but yeah,
I'll tell you what, like the schedule thing though, and I agree as far as productivity and getting done stuff that you've promised yourself you're going to do. But I know for me, I have because I talked about part of one of my demons is drinking beer to help me go to sleep at night, and I was really worried about the whole insomnia thing. But because I've been at home, because I haven't had shows on the road, I've been able to have a regular sleep schedule where it's like I haven't read a book in 3-4 years probably, but now it's like I'm doing the whole stepping away from all computer screens an hour before I plan to fall asleep, getting in bed, turning on low light, and opening up a book and reading. And the rules are, it's like, hey, bro, I have a whole psych myself up conversation where it's like, you can read as long as you want. You can read till 3 in the morning, and that's fine. And then, and instead, like 4 pages in, I'm like, oh, I'm tired, and then falling asleep. I've had some of the best sleep in years. But it's only because I have this regular schedule right now. It's like that's going to go out the window once I'm hopping on a planes going to different time zones.
Yeah, I actually haven't had a Diet Coke since Friday morning.
What?
I did have a little bit of my little Arnold Palmer today.
That's caffeinated?
Yeah, it's not really just so much a caffeine version, but I've had chocolate too with caffeine in it. So I'm like, it was just more like, oh, so I like it without a Diet Coke or slamming something like that. I had this like I've just been at every meal, just nothing but water, just a curious sort of thing. Like I don't plan to give it up, but I just want to like, oh, how long can I go? And it comes into that question of like, the skill we should all be trying to develop is free will. It is we should all try to work on that and build that. And there's a lot of good literature now out there, which we've talked about before, about why it makes it hard, whatever, and it becomes we can have a culture of excuses. We can supply ourselves with all sorts of reasons of why we can't do something or why it didn't happen. And at the end of the day, I don't want my life to be an accomplishment of excuses of why I didn't do things. I want my life to be accomplishments, and not things that just were handed to me, things that I worked for, and hard things are hard to work for. I'll go in periods where I'll work out and then I'll stop working out because maybe I get sick or whatever, and then I drift off. But then you have to own it. You really, really, really have to own it.
And that whole idea of free will, of course, is based on the idea of like, I want to choose things because I'm choosing them, not because I'm pressured into it because I'm hungry at this moment or tired at this moment or whatever. And it makes me think of, I forget which book I was reading it, but it talked about of all the things you can do, the most valuable skill you can have in your life is being comfortable being uncomfortable. And I just Googled that phrase and it came up with like a whole bunch of stuff like, Navy SEALs, apparently that's their slogan or whatever. But it's like, if you can distance yourself from the moment and instead take yourself out like, wow, this really sucks. I am nauseous and it's very hard work. And if you could pull yourself out of it, you can continue to do the thing that's making you uncomfortable, but do so from a position of well, this is happening and I've got to get through this. In many ways, it's like, when you get on stage and you could tell a bit's not hitting and it's not going well, but you're on rails for it, where it's like, you're able to kind of pull out and you're like, I'm really not connecting from this audience. What can I learn from this experience? How can I make the most of this highly uncomfortable experience?
Yeah, I think that that's a key, is that so much of our problems, come from, we just want to be animal, we just sometimes surrender to the animal side, just the id, just like, I'm going to have this, whatever, I feel bad, I'm going to do this. And, Justin's talked a lot about the idea of shame spirals and stuff, but I'm at that point where, I acknowledge, any reason I don't get something done is because I didn't get it done. When I talk to my editors or publishers, whatever, I'll say this happened, but it's like, ultimately it's me.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I've found that I think has been a healthy progression for me is when I feel bad about stuff, I try not to compound it, because I think that's where you can really do damage to yourself, is when you feel bad. Like if I don't do things for 2 days in a row that I know I should do, it's always, I didn't do something today, not I haven't done something in the last 2 days, and also that one day last week, and also that one day 2 months ago, and also I haven't done as much as I wanted to do over the last year. Because then you're dealing with a lot. Like you've buried yourself so far underground that the idea of digging yourself out of it is a lot harder. And it's like, listen, I know I have gone through hyper productive times in my life. I know that it's never more than an hour away, for me to begin, being really, really productive. And it's just a matter of me getting on the right track to do it. And if anything, the biggest thing that I've had to figure out managing is how much is me not being productive, me not allowing myself any kind of like refractory period of like, okay, you put a lot of effort and now you got to take a rest. And because my life in so much, and in many ways, it's been because I've been blessed to be around amazingly high motor people that accomplish so much, that when you are around that, and not only working with Andrew, but working in newspapers and working, with other people and many people at the Go Game, you want to be, at least competitive in the clubhouse of your little world, to be like, no, I do a lot. Like I'm going 24/7, and I want to be the one who creates the most and creates the best and gets the most and the best out of me, because I'm looking at other people that I know and respect doing it, and I want them to know and respect that of me. And what I know internally for me has been the biggest struggle is like, well, you know what, you want to know what? Like I feel like I have gotten a lot out of that, but if there's been a cost, it has been at ignoring my own limits on even just like, you know what, I could be more productive if I took a breather here and again. And if I felt comfortable taking a break and didn't think that it was me surrendering. And sometimes that can compound into stuff like, in my lower moments where it's like, no, you want to know what? Maybe I don't have to just get into these things where I sit down and refuse to do something internally, and I keep making excuses on why I don't want to do stuff. Maybe it's just, I just need, you want to know what? I need a weekend. I need a day. Mm-hmm. I need something where I can just refocus where I'm at, and I can assess what I've done, and I can look to make a conscious plan to do it better. And that's what I think I'm getting better at that, but it is a very, it's a big work in progress for me.
I think it is. It's when you understand the reflection point is what it is, and it's not an avoidance of it. I have a kid's book that I finished my first draft last week, and my plan was to get on it this week and start writing it. But I knew that was sort of unrealistic, because I knew that I needed to spend my time with my brain working upon other things, and part of it is just trying to make sure that I can, not overpromise, and that I can give like realistic expectations to other people, which is a big part of it, but it will get done. I don't worry. And if I look at sort of the longer view of how much writing I do, like, oh man, I do a lot of writing, so I'm not worried about the output of that. And I'd much rather not be pushing myself and punishing myself with impossible deadlines and then spending months and months not doing anything. But it's trying to find your pace and find a way to do it. A thing that struck me this week, I have a project that's had a lot of movement on it. I'm very excited, and we'll see what happens with that. And I realize that sometimes we put things out there in the universe, and we put them in the hands of other people, and maybe it's their responsibility, maybe it's their job, and we're so tired and so frustrated with having to push it for so long that we just want to put it in somebody else's hands. And then if it doesn't happen, we sort of just shrug it off. When
you're like, oh, well, I bought that scratch off and it didn't pay off. It came up, guy didn't do the thing.
Yeah, and I think that exactly. And I think that I knew when I wanted to get into television. I knew that when I was at this very, very low point in my life where I did not know what was my path in the universe. Nobody came before me. The UFO did not appear. Nobody gave me a guidebook. Nobody told me this is what you need to do. There were a lot of things I like to do. No one thing sung to me. And when I decided, like, okay, I want to do TV, I knew I had to make a decision that no matter what, when I woke up in the morning or afternoon, let's be honest, that my first priorities would be serving that goal, would be working towards that, would be like, this is my number one goal. The first things I do today, my priority today is getting that done. Everything else is secondary. And that was a big change for me. After I made that decision to do that, my life changed and things turned for the better. But then I think that, as we get older and we achieve certain things, it's very easy to drift from there. It's very easy to sort of drift off and then kind of go like, yeah, I want to do this. I checked all the boxes.
Where is it?
Yeah. And then, oh, well, okay, not my fault. And I think that's not the way to do it,
Well, and so much of that, not only, I almost wonder sometimes how much of that attitude is us, and to go back to like the shaming like conversation that we were having during the regular podcast with the John Ronson book, how much of it is us deluding ourselves or us preparing to talk to other people about it? How much is it us buying into a sellable narrative that we can go to other people so you can say like, I did it. I tried. It turns out it was out of my control. Oops.
There's that. I think there's comfort zone. Like my first approach was like I wrote letters like, hey, I have this idea for a television show. And I wrote them, sent them to some production companies, sent them to a few different places. I did that. And then I just waited, for the response. And the response was tepid at best. And I'm kind of like, well, I don't know what else to do. I told them. And then I talked to somebody.
By the way, that temptation to just be all like, "Well, I tried," like that is so tempting. It's because it puts a button on it. It gives an end to it. It means you could go on to something else. And nobody loves to fail. It's like you get a big old bitter mouthful of fail, and then it's like the last thing you want to do is be like, "Well, how can I sign up for an even bigger mouthful of that stuff?"
And I did everything that I thought I needed to do, and then I talked to somebody who was a really successful businessman, and I said, "What advice would you give me?" And he said, when I get an application, when somebody sends me a resume, I take it and I throw it away. If somebody shows up at my office, talks to my secretary and says, hey, I know I don't have an appointment, but if I could talk to him for 10 minutes, that'd be great. And I'm willing to wait. The person who's willing to wait for an hour to go talk to me says, I will talk to that person. And that's the person I want to hire. And it was, for him, was absolutely right, because that's the person you want selling your products. That's the person you want out there representing you, the person that will do that, go that far. If they can sell themselves, when you put money in front of his motivation, what will they do? But he told me that, like, you have to talk to people. You have to go out there. And so that was a big pivotal change. And the first thing I did is I went to the local PBS station, said, hey, I was just in the area. I wanted to talk to the guy who does development. I have some materials. Could I drop them off for them or whatever? If he's here, I'd love to talk to him. Guy came out, talked to me, loved it. Next thing you know, was back there for a meeting, and they wanted to do a project with me. And it was just that I'm like, wow, it works. 6 months later, opened up my office at Universal Studios in Orlando to go talk to people who made stuff on a bigger scale, because I said, wow, if I just show up and talk to people, things change.
Yeah, that's exactly how my business partner on Scam Stuff, John Tilton, got the gig to schlep my stuff around. Was that we probably got 30 to 50 applicants, people sending me resumes saying I want to help out, do X, Y, or Z. And meanwhile, he, being a fan of NSFW, used our own trick against us and organized all of his family to have like a positive Twitter bomb of reasons I should consider hiring John Tilton. And it's like, even though he was using a play out of my own playbook, I was like, this is a guy who at least knows my playbook and is not and is willing to rally and corral his friends to make that stuff happen. That was the heuristic that told me, if he's the kind of guy who will do this, he's the kind of guy who can adjust, adapt, and listen and do the things that I need done. So that's why he got the job.
And that's, I think that give up, as we talk about, give up on the narrative of why you should have succeeded. Give up on that. Forget your goal isn't to explain at a party why you didn't succeed. Your goal is to be too busy to go to the party. Give up on that. And then if you can always do more, you can always do more. If you write a book and the book's not selling, you can push the book. Maybe the thing you can do now is write a better book, And if you're an actor and you're trying to get a part and you're having trouble with auditions, create your work. There's so many other options. If you got a product, you got a widget, maybe it's not a good widget, maybe it's better, whatever. I mean, it's just, you can always do more. And I see so many people, all they want is an excuse. All they want is that. And it's just, go to the excuse store, go to Excuse Flicks, whatever, get a subscription. That's fine.
Dude, you're so right though. And it's such a tempting life to lead, man. It's like you want to be the guy who because let's face it, it's way easier to like, oh, my job is to get this thing done. Well, the first step is to write an email to this guy and wait for him to write back. I wrote that email. I'm done. It's off my shoulders. I don't feel it. What am I supposed to force the guy to read my email and to comply? I've already done my part. I wrote the email.
Well, I had a meeting a couple months ago with one of my partners on a project, and we went into the meeting. The meeting was really good. Everything was said was right. As soon as we walked out of the meeting, I said, "We need a plan B." And they're like, "Well, I don't know. Let's wait." So I said, "No. I want a plan B because I don't want to be waiting too long for this to happen because this is great. But if this doesn't happen," and I had a tentative plan B. I had sort of a way to go about it. Months drove, and we had a really positive response. Month goes by, another month goes by, and then 3 months go by, and I'm like, that's a quarter of a year. I want to say, I forget who it was, but there was some marketing guru who pointed out that Napoleon had a reputation for being extremely fast thinking on the field, and that was not the case at all. He was not quick to deal with what happened. He just sat down and thought of every possible countermaneuver that he might encounter, every possible problem he might come up with, and he had pre-written plans for how to react to all those things. And as a result, he was always able to respond immediately to whatever was thrown at him. Yeah, I wasn't in a position to sort of pull because of just kind of the weird relationship thing going on with this other group. But finally, when it was like, oh no, they're not going to be able to pursue it. First thing I do is I call my agent, like, now you need to do this,
Right.
And boom, happens. Now, boom. But it's one of those things that's like, I'm always like, when I was waiting to find out if I was going to get my TV series on A&E, I had a plan A and plan B. I had a plan, plan A was not the TV series, by the way. Plan A was, doubling down on the writing, all this other sort of stuff. And then it was, B is like, okay, then I do this. But I'm always like, I will sell myself so much on the other plan too, to the point that like I don't go through disappointment like other people do. I just don't. It just because it's like, well,
it's all just data. It's not an indictment of your ability to handle things. It's just like, well, this is the current result.
But also that's learned, right? Mm-hmm. That's endurance. That's having been through, and that's where I think people hit the wall is like once you understand how finicky and ephemeral and weird a lot of these situations in terms of collaborative power structures are. And I'm not just talking about show business or literature or performance. Like, I mean,
Nazi sex dungeons,
not Nazi sex dungeons, the world, like your job and your progress at your job and your life and your goals are determined by many, 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 many different people. And the more you realize that this is not personal, this is not a judgment on your character, that's where the disappointment comes in, because you feel that it is you who is rubber stamped the failure and not the project and not the job you are doing right now. There was a really interesting that I feel like came off as a little too bitter, but I think it's probably for the online traffic. But I think it was Lifehacker, one of the Gawker media properties, that talked about, your employer is not your friend. Here are things that you need to remember, like with your job. And like, some of the stuff I thought was a little like, is like, the HR department is not there for you. It is there to prevent lawsuits for the company. Like once you get a job is the only time that you should be doubling down looking for new jobs and stuff like that. And like there was an element to that I think is important, that, you always want to be looking out for, and I don't want this to sound overly like, you got to look out for number one, bro. But like, there's nobody's going to do you the favors, like if they do, it will be because they see mutual interest in you, or you have a benevolent element that kind of comes
well,
down, but that's found money.
That's the best way of looking at your job. Like, let's say you have a gig that you'd rather be doing, but right now you're working at a job, whether you like it or not. Maybe you like it a lot, but one of the best things you can think of is stop thinking of yourself as an employee of a company. Think of yourself as a self-employed corporation who is currently licensed its services to Dell Corporation or whatever. And as such, Dell is your client, and you want to keep your client happy, but you also want to make sure that your services get paid what they're due.
Yeah, I think nobody has your interests like you have your own interests. Nobody ever will. And if you think you do, if you trust some important part of it to them, you're often going to be met more often with calamity than elation. You have to understand that it's in. Then you can look out for other people. You can have friends and people like that you want to support and help do, but understand that Justin and Brian are two of my best friends in the world. They have their own damn lives too. They have their own things they worry about when they go to sleep, their own situations they have to deal with and all that. And I'm fortunate to be able to have the time and opportunity to talk to them when I can. But end of the day, we'd share kidneys with each other, not for fun, maybe, but the point is, but still, everybody has their own responsibilities, and the further removed you are from people, the more so. And it's there. I reference like in the Steve Jobs biography, the Becoming Steve Jobs, Johnny Ive talks about how like Steve Jobs will tell him like, oh, well, this is crap, or he uses a different word, like this is this. And he says, no, he says, I like that because other people will tell you like, oh, this is great or whatever, but they're being insincere. And he says, and that can be worse because then you don't know, and you feel that, I live in, we talk about LA, it's like everybody loves everything. Everybody loves everything. I love it. And I was talking about this with my agent. He said, yeah, he said, I work for an agent that had a sign on his door that said, love me less, hire me more.
Yeah.
And, that is the disease of that town, man. Everybody is everybody's best friend. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, herpes and insincerity are the twin scourges. Hey, real quick recommendation, and it's something that a lot of people would probably not listen to because they're not sports people, but this is not a sports thing. The BS Report podcast hosted by Bill Simmons. Bill Simmons is a writer for ESPN that founded the Grantland network. He is a free agent. Or his contract is up at the end of this summer or during this summer. He will get a massive deal, either with Disney, which is most likely, or with literally any other partner that wants to bring him on that will build him his own kingdom for which to play in, because he has demonstrated a track record that he was able to build his own successful website, and he has a personality in and of itself that's important. He, on his BS Report podcast, labeled review for Furious 7, because at the end of the podcast, he has his movie review guy to talk about that podcast. Says at the beginning he's going to do a 15-minute recap because it's the 20th anniversary of ESPN.com, the story of how he came to be at ESPN.com, which is really his kind of origin story. It goes 45 minutes, and it is certainly worth listening to, because this is a guy who has very much in is an internet success story of having the mountain come to Muhammad. He if you listen to him talk about the stuff that he wrote about and the stuff he liked and why he made the decisions that he did, he made the decision fairly early on that he wanted to be a national sports columnist, but wondered why national sports columnists were so rare, that regional sports columnists had such a hard time breaking through to a national level. And part of it was, in his opinion, in a regional sports column, if you're a Boston sports columnist, you can make jokes about, the Charles River and the Bruins history and the Patriots history and the Celtics history.
Vince Scully,
Yeah, or Mayor Menino. There's stuff that you can just get a reaction. And what he decided very early on was that pop culture, and specifically deep references to like the Karate Kid and Rocky and stuff like that, were going to be his local sports references. And it's
real quick, like what am I looking for? It's the BS Report podcast.
BS Report, and I believe the episode's called Wesley Morris Furious 7.
Wesley Morris is all it says on there.
Yeah.
So-
That's it then.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
so
Wesley
so
Morris,
that's the most
4-3-15.
recent one, April 3rd.
Wesley
Yeah.
Morris.
Yeah, got it.
But it's really interesting, especially considering it is all leading up to, like, really, that is all intro to whatever happens to him this summer. Because be it them spinning out Grantland to be even more of its own entity, or them, giving him more control or something like that, or him leaving. He is going to get the kind of payday that you rarely see for born online, media people, and it's going to be interesting.
I'll tell you what. It makes me think. This has been a rather extraordinary year. Like, it was around 1 year ago that I got word about hacking the system going forward, and it was a year ago that we launched Night Attack as an independent podcast, and of course, Cord Killers was just starting, and I as you've heard me talk about before, I overdid it in 2014, and that's part of the reason I'm trying to keep a level head going into 2015. But it's amazing what happens if people worry about making a bad deal to begin with, and it paralyzes them from making that first step. You could make a case for the fact that I brought Scam School to Revision 3 all those years ago, and told them what I wanted to do, and then they fronted the money and they own it, and now it's part of the Discovery family or whatever, and I am just paid talent for it. You could say that was a very, very bad decision if, when you're sitting from the outside. I would say that I learned all I needed to learn about how to communicate with audiences, how to tell stories on camera, how to build a brand, and here we are on the other side of 1 million subscribers. And regardless of what happens next, and by the way, I'm extremely happy right now with our relationship with Discovery. Everything is hunky freaking dory. Still don't own it, but that's fine. I'll never own it. But being on the other side of 1 million subscribers, is some of the most powerful leverage you could possibly have. Like, when I want to pitch a project to anyone, people take my phone call, because there's fewer than 1,500 channels on the planet that have passed this marker. And likewise, you and I did NSFW for a split take of $350 that we split between the two of us for 5 years, right? And we rearranged our schedules, we flipped stuff upside down, we treated it like it was the biggest deal in the world, making zero money, and nobody knew that we made zero money. But there came a time when all of a sudden we were able to do something truly extraordinary. We became one of Patreon's top contributing independent podcasts of all time instantly overnight, because we had built up that brand value. And I guess what I'm thinking about in general is that, and especially as what you said to the BS report, you are building something, whether it's credit with your audience, whether it's a track record for success, whether it's experience in the field you want to be. I would say don't be one of those people that insists on waiting for the perfect deal. Take the deal that lets you start as soon as possible.
I get this all the time out here where I talk to people who are like, oh yeah, I think I'm going to do a podcast or a video thing. I'm like, oh cool. But yeah, like if it's video, like, oh yeah, I'm trying to get this friend who's camera and all this we can use. I'm like, well, you're not going to get an audience until you do a lot of episodes. You're not going to get a lot of episodes unless it's something you can just do every week. Like, yeah, but I don't want to look like crap. Well, that's great. It's never going to get done. Good luck with your fantasy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh,
it's
God.
like, say right now, I want it to look like crap at first. It's like, here's the thing. And weirdly, this is the advice my mom gave me about dating. She says, go out with that girl. She won't be the one, but maybe her roommate is. Maybe she'll introduce you to the one, because that's how she connected with my dad.
It's a great point. And it drives me nuts because I
gave you other questionable sexual advice.
Hey man, we'll save it for the album.
I know people I've been talking to for years are like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this thing. Why? Well, like I'm going to do a podcast. Like, do a pod. Yeah, I got to get the right microphones. It's like, I don't want to sound like crap. You know what sounds like crap? Nothing. You got nothing. You have nothing out there. You can do good enough. And it's kind of like, I try not to talk about that stuff anymore. There's certain people I just sort of like, I'm going to write you off, in these conversations because you want to talk about it, you don't want to do it. I'm like, no, and it's just, they want that fantasy. And as long as they want that bubble, that just don't pop my bubble and tell me that I can't do it. And it's just like, drives me nuts. And it's just, oh God, it's the worst. And I know so many people who have that sort of like, well, I want it to be, it's great that you want it to be perfect. Congratulations. You have high expectations. Welcome to reality. Get something done. Get something done because you have nothing. I've had people I could put out for projects. I'm like, oh no, I have nothing to show you. They haven't done anything. They haven't delivered anything.
I'll tell you what. I had this shower thought the other day. So when we started iTricks and we decided, hey, you know what's going to be gigantic? RSS feeds and podcasts. And we were like half right. We decided to do, was it 5 weekly? It was
a Chris Angel podcast,
Penn and Teller, Chris Angel, David Copperfield, David Blaine, and the Magic Week in Review. 5 podcasts weekly, right? And I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, well,
by
you want to know what?
I meant Justin. You go do these podcasts.
I do, and it's like, if you could do it again, like in a vacuum, and like, well, you want to know what? Knowing what we know now, probably should have just done the one and then built excitement to see which one people wanted, which of the mini podcasts people wanted, and then kind of build it from there. Like if me now could go back and do it, that's what I would suggest to me then. But at the same time, it was like, oh my God, was that invaluable to me? To just have every Friday be 4 hours of audio production and recording and scheduling and writing for advertisers and doing all of that and having it take up as much time as it did and having it be listened to as few people as listened to it. Like it was boot camp. Like it was ego boot camp of the highest order. And like, yeah, that strategy wise, maybe that bore out to be not as good of a strategy as we could have done otherwise. But holy crap, did it make me so much better and also just worth it to be like, you want to know what? If I do something now, I have a totally different mindset of listenership and what I get out of it and what my ego is satisfied on. Like, it's about the product. It's about what I'm happy with. And there's a process to it. But if no one listens to it, awesome. That's fine. And if you are doing something right now that nobody listens to and you feel bad about it, congratulations. That's how you know it's working. Dude. You are becoming better. Every second that you feel that, you are becoming stronger and better, and you are allowing yourself to do a better product.
And understand, the reason you're doing it is not for any practical short-term benefit. What you're doing is, it's like your brain or your perception is a muscle. You're building up the ability to see the world differently. Pre and post performing on the street, I saw magic performances totally differently. It's like I would go to magic clubs or magic meetings or magic conventions, and I would see people on stage, and they would have their polished routines that they worked out, and it was always on stage. I was like, oh, what could I do that's on stage or whatever? Then I go to perform on the street. And when you're faced with the reality of, here's your 2-foot strip of concrete, this is the passerbys that you need to grab, go for it. All of a sudden it changed everything. And it's like, I stopped writing material that was visionary that I would imagine belonged on a performance art stage. And I started thinking, what can play in a community college hallway? And when you have that nuts and bolts concreteness to it, and likewise, same thing. It's like that was your street performing, doing those podcasts. You're like, what can I say that'll make people continue to listen?
Well, and also understanding those listenerships, small as they might be, were wildly different. Like the Magic Week in Review was by and large listened to older men, right? Like either because even for whatever reason it was popular more with probably dudes 20 to 50 than it was kids 25 and under, which are two pretty much of like the major Magic demos, right? People who kind of make it go past the teenage burning sensation of we need to do Magic, and then the hotbed of teenage kids who just get into Magic and then become obsessed with it. So we were more on the older end. With the Chris Angel podcast, holy crap. Now all of a sudden I have a demo of girls, either it was like 10 to 16 and 30 to 50, like it was
Wow.
like these demos that like I don't talk to a lot to now, but it was, I had to learn to figure out, oh my God, this is something that needs to be different. And now I am far better for it, in the same way that like you learned how to perform on the street and you learn where I can play in a hallway. Flash forward to 4 years ago, you're getting paid a pretty penny to perform in a hallway at a casino in South Florida.
And I remember thinking this is an obscene amount of money to be paid for an astonishingly bad gig. And meanwhile, it's like
You're welcome, Brian.
Yeah, dude. By the way, thank you, man. That's let me give you a little pinky thank you. But it's like, but it didn't intimidate me. It didn't scare me at all because it was familiar territory. Like if I was one of these prima donnas who had done a bunch of high end stuff, I would be all like, this is bullshit, crap. What am I doing in this situation? I deserve to blah blah blah. But it wasn't. Instead, it was all smiles. It was like, it's gonna be great. Don't worry about it. And it was great. I was the best hallway performing mother effer in the entire casino that night. It's like you draw on those experiences, and you have to spend your time in the muck, and you have to appreciate that that's what's making possible everything now.
And there's there is this. I'm a person that I emphasize a lot on getting the information, but then there is the putting it out there and learning and getting there. You can have all the theories in the world about how to do a TV show or how to do something like that, but then you're on the set and you're on this and you realize, oh wow, this is how things are made. This is how this is done. And I can sit there and like, oh, these are the perfect ideas. But I think that and it comes with sort of that mix. Like one of the things that I try to. It gets frustrating because I talk to people who, speaking magic, I know people who I want to be a magician like David Copperfield, or I want to be as famous as that. And I've had this conversation with a couple different people. It's like, okay, right now he's going to go see this show, live show. He's going to go watch this live entertainment. He's going to go watch these things. He's maybe going to go home and spend some time practicing, but he's not going to spend all of his time in front of his computer on YouTube with a deck of cards in his hand. He's going to actually go see the kinds of things, the venues he wants to fill. And I talked to a friend the other day where I mentioned I was just in Vegas, and I said, yeah, I almost went to go see Chris Angel's show. And he goes, yeah, I wouldn't see it. I'm like, well, why? He goes, like, well, I've seen it before. I'm like, yeah, but don't you want to know, when I go to these shows, I talk to everybody around me. And I asked him, what shows have you seen since you're here? How did you find out about this show? I started trying to figure out, what's their ages? What's the demographics? What's all the stuff? And anybody that wants to put, whether you want to put people in, if I'm trying to think about showrooms and stuff like that, I want to know these things. If I'm on an airplane and somebody next to me is reading a book, how'd you find the book? Have you read other stuff by this person? I want to know these things. And people who want to know those things, I think, end up knowing more. And other people, they don't. They want to live in that bubble,
Well, and that's also that's covered in Dr. Richard Weissman's The Luck Factor. He talks about the difference. They categorize the behaviors of quote unquote lucky people versus unlucky people. And lucky people strike up conversations with random people in line, which once you open up those gates of communication, you open up the opportunity for a fortuitous coincidence that leads you to an audition for the perfect gig.
I watched the guy who I told you had the Elvis story. I was at a restaurant with him and a few other people, and there was some people who looked like maybe they came out of some sort of theater show or something like that. We're all paying. They're at the same time paying at the checkout. We are at the diner. We go outside, and he's talking to these people like, "What's your show? What are you doing?" Da 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 da, and just engage them in a conversation. So I hung around and started talking to him, and I could see because he's got this Zelig life of everybody he knows. So many people, and I could see how he's just, well, what do you do? Da 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 da. And I'm like, was very interesting, thing for me to learn. I picked up something from David Copperfield, and it was the simplest little thing, but there was somebody I had a contact. He needed an answer to a question or something like that, and I said, well, yeah, I'll send him this person an email or whatever. And David said, why don't you call him? I'm like, well, email's easier or whatever. Yeah, but just what happened to calling people? And in my mind, it's like, well, it's not as efficient. And I did have to spend a half an hour conversation with this person about how Houdini really did come back from the dead and all this sort of stuff. But I understood, man, that person we had a half hour conversation. And so rather than 3 sentences, it was a half hour, and probably, it was a better use of my time to make the phone call. And I'm like, wow,
yeah, there was a dispute I was having with another magician about some content that I felt like belonged to me that was on a thing, and Teller's advice was very similar. He said pick up the phone, call him, and Justin's advice doubled down on the same thing. He says talk to him, and Teller's advice was never threaten. Just speak on the phone. And it's amazing what opens up when you break down, the structured barriers between people.
And this wasn't like I didn't need anything from here. I knew the person I was talking to, like I was going to be able to do them a favor and I was going to be able to help them out. But it was just the idea that, like, yeah, if so much of our relationships become just sentences, just lines of text, just 140 characters with people, then it's not the same, and it's better to, when you can, try to call, and that's an effort I'm trying to make more. Just call people.
I mean, here's the thing about text. To me, it is an extraordinarily risky medium of communication.
Yep.
Because
sarcasm, winks, your emoticons only go so far to expressing your true meaning.
And also it's like, I know, like, Brian, you have a way of writing that I know because I've talked to you and I read it in your voice, but like you are every once in a while, and I do this a lot too, like capital letters, like certain things to make emphasis and reading it in your voice as I know you speak and I know more of your intentions than the average person.
Sure.
It's understood. However, if it's the first time I'm getting an email from you,
like, who's shouting at me? What's going on?
Why are you yelling like every paragraph?
Yeah.
Like what? Like, are you scolding me? Are you acting like I don't understand what you're saying? And it's like, that is an overreaction. That is a misreading of it, and it is probably even leaving things cognitively out of these certain sentences to construct the narrative that makes you angrier than you might be.
Right.
However, you are always at risk in text.
Yeah.
You are always at risk of being misunderstood, misread, and put into a situation that, I mean, I remember one time, who was it? We were booking Turquoise Jeep for Dragon Con. And we were talking about stuff like that. And then it came to a point of the Jeep they were debating whether or not they were going to do the show. And then at some point there was like a question on whether or not they'd send a few of the guys to our Dragon Con show or split it up because they had a possible college booking. And I totally misread who they were planning on sending. And I thought that they said that they weren't going to send Flint Flossie. So I drafted an entire email about, well, we can book this or we can do that. And then I reread the email and I'm like, oh, no, wait, they didn't say it at all. It was like somebody else that they weren't going to send. And I'm like, wow, I spent 2.5 hours
yes
figuring out how we were going to do stuff and contingency plans and talking to other people for nothing. For just because I misread it in that one.
There's and I know we're running long, but C.J. Johnson has a fantastic story where his cell phone rang, and he picked up the phone and it sounded like a call center at the time, and so his hackles are up, and they're all like, hello, is this C.J. Johnson Magic? And he's like, yes. What can I do for you? And he's like, well, I was calling you to talk about the police, and he's like, look, you know what you're doing is illegal. Like, what? Talking to you about the police? You don't like cops? And he's like, no, you can't call me on my cell phone. And blah 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 blah, and so he ends up running the thing off, and gives this cold caller the what for, and then the next day gets an email from a friend who says, hey, so I recommended you for this benefit for the Fraternal Order of Police. Did the guy call you? And he was just like, he chased off what might have been a multiple $1,000 gig because he just in that moment assumed that it was somebody trying to sell him crap.
Lesson learned. They're going to ask him to do it for free. But
yeah. Oh yeah.
We certainly, we have to value our time and do that, but also the fact that the more that we do value our time and spending time to talk to people can be helpful. I've become like, I'm one of these people. I try to only make my phone calls when I'm in a car. I get wary because in Magic, you have people who will call you up and try to keep you on the phone for hours. I'm like, oh, so what do you think? And it's
Jeez.
Like
I got this one guy. He calls me every time he goes to McDonald's.
Oh, for the audio listeners, that was just a work of art.
I love your phone calls, Andrew.
For the record, it's Daphne's California.
Oh, okay, I apologize. But what I like about it is the understanding of like either one of us can pull the plug at any time. Like we could be in the middle of a philosophical discussion, and I'm like, diaper, gotta go. And you're like, bye, click.
And I will say, oh, did we lose Justin there?
Yeah, it says they're trying to get here. I'll call him back here. There we go. His joy overrode his stream.
He says he's rebooting right now.
Oh, okay, got it.
My other response to that is like, there are people I put into categories that'll go, hey, can I call you back in 15 minutes? That I go, well, I won't hear from them for a week.
Yeah, no, and first of all, you are 100% like I really truly take it as a flattering thing that I'm on your list of people to call when you have idle cycles, and luckily these days I'm much more in a position to take those calls, and I really value them.
You're in my car dash. You're in I only have 8 numbers there, and so it's like, but I'll call Brian. But I also I know that usually with you, I know that you're. Usually we don't have very long conversations because usually with the kids and everything like that, you have to go from here to there or do something like that. It's like I call I'll call Brian because I know Brian will probably have 10 minutes to talk. And
correct. Well, and also if either one of us reaches the end of our window, it's like and it takes a while to get to that level of personal connection where you can say anyway, this conversation's done, bye, and know that you're not taxing the other person at all.
I have some friends Chris Kenner, great buddy, right?
Yeah.
Our conversations are either 5 or 10 minutes or they're 3 hours. As one of us is doing the drive from LA to Vegas or back and forth. It's that distribution.
Well, and it's that matter of maximizing your opportunity because you never know you don't know what the other person's up to. You don't know. They may be begging for an interesting conversation to come in, but it's the only way you're going to be there at the right time to have one of those deep philosophical 3-hour conversations is if you make a habit of reaching out to the other people.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a buddy, I'll call. I'm like, oh, I know he'll probably be leaving work right now. I'm in my car, so I know I'll talk for 15 minutes, and then when he gets home, son, a bunch of little sequential ones are.
So
fine.
Carl says there should be an app for that. The problem with an app is that it would it's something people secretly want, but they don't know that they want. Kind of like TiVo. When I remember trying to explain TiVo to people when it came out, they're like, "Why would I want to watch more TV?" And I'd have to explain, "No, counterintuitively, you'll watch less TV. It'll only be the TV you want."
An app for what?
For what we were discussing, knowing when someone else is in a position to talk or whatever. So it's
called answering or not answering.
Well, but here's what I think will happen. 5-10 years from now, as our Siris become Jarvises, our concierges will recognize that we're headed on a trip. They'll look at our schedule, say, well, he's going to be driving from now till now. Let me talk to other relevant contact AIs and say, hey, do you think it's worth, mentioning to Brian that he should talk to Andrew? He's got a 3-hour thing. It was like, yeah, they haven't spoken for 4.
I agree. No, I think that'll be Windows. But I also think, too, another reason why I'm very excited to see what happens with the Apple Watch is the idea of pushing a lot of that communication here where I can be the idea of making voice text that much easier and simple to do, which, every Google and every iPhone can do right now. But the idea of hey, Brian, I saw this funny, interesting, not leaving a voicemail, but just blah, blah, blah. That's part of that long, I love the structure of SMS, that there's this long dialogue that takes place there.
Yeah. This persistent conversation that's on the record, for good or for ill. I think it's probably for good. I think that right now, we're seeing the transition where our expectation is privacy at all times, and then there are times we go out and do things intentionally in public. I think that's going to flip in the next 10 years. I think our expectation is everything is public, and that there will be precious moments that we press a button, and now we're in privacy.
But also think about the idea of of me pressing the button and, hey, Brian, I just watched Daredevil. Play this once you've seen it. Stop here, but once you've seen it, listen to this and then tell me what you think. And being able to take what would be a phone conversation and stretch it out into sort of the text message sort of space.
Yeah.
Because then it could be like, oh, okay, I saw this what you're saying, but what about this? Because like we do that in voicemail. We don't really do that a lot in phone text because it just doesn't fit that medium so well. But when it gets moved to wearables or other things, that could be very interesting.
Yeah, Neshcom points out, isn't this what I am and calendar apps want to be? Yes, but the problem is it requires that extra step for me to do a thing. And that's, I've never once changed my status on Skype ever. I've never done it because it's like, I'm just like, ugh. But it's like once you enter in, you know, and it's not hard stuff. It's just tedious enough that I don't do it. And once you have a Jarvis and it knows, you know, it knows that Brian's sitting down to do this. So it's like, it'll change my phone and Skype and everything.
Yeah, at the age of intelligent assistants, man, it's what we're upon right now. It's going to be exciting and terrifying and it's going to have both good and bad implications for how we interact with each other. Mm-hmm. You know, like anything, it magnifies.
Yeah, right on. Well, crap, I guess we're going to wrap up with Justin still off the air.
What a quitter.
He went down in a flaming ball of laughter.
Yeah.
Man, this was good. By the way, the only thing that I didn't get to say that I wanted to was in the Mother of All Demos, take a look and look at this dude's face. Tell me that couldn't be today in Silicon Valley.
Oh yeah.
That dude's got like an Amish beard and like a close cropped hairdo, wearing some stuff on his looks like a Bluetooth thing in his head. This is back in what, 1968?
Yeah, so we're 3 years away from this being 50 years.
That's amazing. And that dude looks like he just walked out of Google right now.
Yeah. It is a very interesting tech demo to see.
Yeah, man. I do recommend, if you don't want to watch the entire, hour and 40-minute tech demo, definitely listen to the 99% Invisible episode.
Yeah, it's a lot to sit through and to slog through that thing, but it's fascinating to see just when you look at the time and place that took place.
Hey, man, how's it been, Andrew?
After.
Boop. Good deal.
Boop, 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 boop.
It was a really good, it was a good set of shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
See?
Oh, see.
Today's the 3rd, 04, 03. Rotan Hotep.
That was the first one, yeah. And this is what, the excuse store?
The excuse store. Yeah, man. This was a this was a really interesting, good episode. I've been told, I got a couple of emails, one of which saying like, hey, in case you're wondering, the most publicly, because obviously, between Night Attack and between Cord Killers is a very niche subject, even though I think it's an approachable format. Night Attack is a very niche show where we take a lot of bizarre risks and so on. But we have a lot of fans within Diamond Club who want to share, and they meet with varying levels of success. And somebody just flatly said, hey, by the way, in case you're wondering, Weird Things is the best podcast you do, according to people who have never encountered any of them. Like, that's apparently the most approachable of them.
That's funny. I think that the strength of Night Attack is it's like a fraternity, but it's also, there's so much inside stuff there. It's
fairly unforgiving in that regard.
Yeah, you have to, take a few, you have to get into it after a few episodes, but then I think you're.
The funny thing is, and I'm sure that we are past the point of no return on it. But I feel like what we've done recently has been maybe the most accessible that we've ever been.
Certainly the most structured it's ever been. And I think people dig the fact that they know, there's blank and then we go to blank and blank and blank.
Well, but here's the funniest thing is like, I totally agree, but it's almost like what we came to understand is that there can be just moments where we're talking and where we know what is like chatter content. And we became comfortable with that. Yeah. And that's an element where it's like, if we are having a conversation that we don't know what the other one is talking about, then that creates a greater accessibility to people who are just listening, because they too are part of that conversation for the first time.
So one person is describing, let me walk you through, and then the other person asks the sensible questions of like, well, wait, are you thinking this or are you thinking that? Or
exactly.
Why
like
would
when
you do
you brought
that?
up the whole Bonnie thinking
The when doves cry, yeah.
when doves cry, like Andrew, to bring you up to speed, Bonnie has this theory that the moment in the Prince song "When Doves Cry," when Prince kind of does these sort of vocalizations during the breakdown of like that's him illustrate. It's not a metaphor when doves cry.
Yeah.
He is making a dove call.
Yeah,
in that moment.
When he says the line, "This is what it sounds like when doves cry," he's not assessing the nature of arguments between a mother and a father or whatever. He is instead pausing the song to say, "And now allow me to do my impression of doves crying."
Of a dove, of a literal dove. And that's something where, like, that conversation is something that we've never had before. I didn't know about. So when we go back and forth on it, it makes more sense to like other people than if we did like a bit where it's like, and now R.L. Stine reviews video games, where it's like, okay, so we're building on a character that we know, and we're writing a bit where we're going to feed these things, and it's all going to get back to poorly rolled blunts in a hot tub. And then it's like, okay, well, why is R.L. Stine talking about poorly rolled blunts in a hot tub? I don't know what that is, and that's a barrier. But if we have a conversation that starts from zero and then continues to go, then, and listen, it ain't brain surgery. It's what, Nerdist does, and it's what Smodcast does, and it's what all these other kind of things do. But it was us being able to trust ourselves doing that.
Yeah.
And that's how a cult is born, guys.
Yeah, I'm okay with this.
Cool with this, man.
So we ran out of episode while you were gone. So we're still live, but not recording.
Cool. Well, yeah, that was so funny. Andrew made that face, and my entire rig just blinked out and then came back on. It was pretty great.
He did it with a thought. Right on. Wow, man. Okay, so I'm going to do Diamond Dialogue in, I guess, about 30 minutes, Tinvec. I will be... just call on NSFW show. I think that one's open at 7:30 in 36 minutes from now, and I will answer.
Sweet. All right,
Awesome.
gang. Great hanging out.
Yeah, dude, it was
Bye,
great.
y'all.
Awesome. So long, beautiful people.
Baby, I don't know if I can say all the words, your breath upon my cheek. This is why we touch our heads. This is why we lie in bed. Strength can mind the red. This old possum can't be dead.